How are we, John? We're good to go? All right. Good evening, everybody. Sorry to wake you up back there. It's 6:30. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Marquette Township Board, and we'd appreciate it if you would join us for the Tuesday, March 20th, 2018 meeting. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, roll call, Randy, please.
Trustee LaRue.
Here.
Trustee Wiegand.
Here.
Trustee Everson.
Here.
Trustee Marks.
Present.
Treasurer Johnson.
Here.
Clerk Rotari is here, and Supervisor Durant.
Here.
Staff present is Manager Gerard, Township Attorney Roger Zappa. I think committee members here. We got Public Works Director Kirk Page is here. Committee members here, Mike Springer from the Recreation Planning and Roads. That's it.
And various and sundry other folks joining us. Thank you for coming, everybody. Public comment is next up. If anybody'd like to address the board, please come up to the podium. You can flip the light on if you like. The microphone should be ready. Just name and address. Any general comments or about the agenda? If not, we can go to board member comment in response to public comment, which there was none. And next up would be the public hearing regarding expansion of the DDA boundaries. Tonight, just for a little bit of background, the Downtown District Authority has made a recommendation to the board of expanding the boundaries. We've had numerous meetings, work sessions. There are maps outside. I believe there's, I'm not sure if we've included the maps in this packet, but there is one?
Yes.
Okay. I've flipped through it so many times and I don't even remember. So at this point, we would open the public hearing. We would take comment on whatever parts of that discussion you'd like to have. There are a couple more steps beyond this as far as notification with the public and newspaper publishings and stuff, so this is not going to be decided here tonight, but we are open for public comment. So at 6:32, we can open the public hearing. If anybody would like to discuss this, ask questions, give opinions on the expansion of the downtown district, please feel free to come to the podium. If not, we'll give you a chance. Do I need to do 3 times, Roger?
3 times.
To ask, typically? Okay. Does anybody wish to speak on the expansion of the boundaries in this public hearing? Anybody wish to request time to speak on the public hearing for the DDA? And 3 times. Anybody wishing to address the board regarding the downtown development boundaries in this public hearing? Okay, we can close that at 6:33. And like I said, we will come back to that in subsequent meetings. Next up is the consent agenda. Excuse me. I would like to pull the financials out of the consent agenda, which means that we'll go down to 10-1. We're going to talk, I'd like to talk about the charter payment, excess funds we got. And then that's all that's going to change on the consent agenda, if I can get approval of that.
So moved as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I do need to read that consent agenda, though. Approval of the regular meeting minutes of March 6th is the first thing in that agenda tonight. Also included are bills payable in the amount of $112,477.66. Also is a budget amendment number 2018-03. And we will do a roll call on, that's right, we have to do a roll call on this because of the budget amendment.
Yeah.
Received committee reports and other reports tonight, including the Fire Department Business Meeting draft minutes of March 12th and the Fire Department Officers Meeting draft minutes of, or the officers, same date, Fire Chief, Fire Marshal's Office report in February, as well as the Sheriff's January and February reports. Water production report from February. Peter White Public Library Township Advisory Council minutes of December 6, 2017. Road Committee approved minutes and draft minutes of February 6th and March 6th, and the agenda for April 3rd. My supervisor's report, the financials we pulled, and we'll discuss those later. And then correspondence not requiring board action would be a DEQ permit issued to the Middle Island Point Campers Association and a notice of a hearing for UPCO number U18235. So we will have to re-vote on that because of the budget amendment. Do you want to read that amendment?
Okay. Well, that's in the packet. The highlights from that budget amendment are authorization is requested to increase revenue in the general fund. The cable TV franchise fee was originally calculated at a 3% distribution. However, the payout is now 5%, bringing an additional $26,000 of revenue. In addition, the local community stabilization authority revenue is $9,100 will need to be included. $35,100 will be added to the fund balance. The library fund is also recognizing revenue from the local community stabilizing authority of $1,433, which will be paid to the Peter White Public Library. That's what the budget amendment was for.
Okay, so we need a roll call vote to accept the...
Yeah, the motion was, I made the motion, Trustee LaRue seconded, so I'm yes. Trustee LaRue?
Yes.
Trustee Wiegand?
Yes.
Trustee Everson?
Yes.
Trustee Mark?
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson?
Yes.
And Supervisor Durant?
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. So the second part of this is approval of the rest of the agenda. And we did kind of miss, we have privileged comment on here under number 7, board education and privileged comment. It didn't get into the agenda itself, so I'd like to amend that to say number 1 to be an update from Gary Johnson, 911 dispatch, and that shifts staff reports down to 2. And then fire department, public works, and assessing will stay the same. And that's the only other change I would ask for on the remainder of the agenda. Somebody wants to make a motion?
I'll move the agenda be approved with the noted change.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay. Now we can invite Gary Johnson up to give us an update. He and Pete LaRue have connected, and this was recommended, and I think it's a great idea to give us a heads up on what's going on.
Okay. Well, I thank the board for allowing me to speak tonight. For those who don't know, I'm Gary Johnson. I'm the manager of Marquette County 911. And we not only have the 911 program for the county, we also in our department have emergency management. Our emergency management coordinator, Teresa Schwabach, had a prior commitment, or else she would have been here tonight also. But I would like to address the board and the public here, let you know about a couple of new programs we've started.
Can you move the microphone
sure.
a little bit up? So
Okay, is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. We have 2 new programs that we've started in Marquette County. One is Smart 911, and the second is Marquette Alerts. First, I'll talk about Smart 911. This is a program that we were able to start because the state legislature actually provided some funding for all 911 centers in the state to adopt this program. So we got 3 years of funding guaranteed at this point, and our hope is the state legislature will continue to fund this. And what Smart 911 does is allows anyone in the public to go to a website, smart911.com, and fill out a free safety profile. And what that does is you can put as little or as much information in this profile as you deem necessary that you would like 911 to have in case you have an emergency. You can put in, obviously, your address, phone number, emergency contacts. You can go so far as to put in pictures of your house, a description of where your bedrooms are, if you have pets, how many people are typically in the home, if anyone has any medical conditions that would be helpful for responders to know. If you have children, you can put in their cell phone numbers and yourself as the emergency contact. So if they happen to ever have to dial 911, we can contact you to let you know what's going on. Again, this is a free service and it is secure. The database is managed by a company called Rave, which is who provided this for us. We have no access to the database. We cannot search it. Police cannot search it. It's a private database. The only time that we get the information is when a phone number listed within the profile dials 911. When you dial 911, your safety profile automatically pops up in dispatch with that information. And we have access to it for 45 minutes. You can include photos of children, so if a child goes missing, we can have a recent photo. You know, it's really a kind of a really good system. None of us plan on having an emergency, and when you dial 911, it is nice to have that extra information, depending on the emergency, can be very helpful. Also, with this program, with Smart 911, we have another feature of it, which is called Panic Button, which we will be, we don't have yet. That Panic Button is being purchased through a grant through our Region 8 Homeland Security Board. And what that does is it allows us to approach schools, government buildings, like your facility here, for example. We designate a facility coordinator. They are responsible for all the employees within that facility. They assign them a code, and they can, on their smartphones, download a Panic Button app. And what that does is, if there is an emergency in the facility, all they have to do is hit one button. It automatically dials 911, and it connects with us, but it also alerts everyone else who has that app in the facility that there is a 911 situation, and it'll give them, they can even put in the type of emergency, and that lets everybody else in the facility know that there's an issue. And again, that's something that we can provide if it's something that you're interested in within the township. We certainly can provide that for you. As I go through this, if you have questions, please feel free to shoot them at me. I'd be happy to answer them. So that's kind of Smart 911 in a nutshell. Again, it's smart911.com. It takes just a few minutes to fill out your safety profile, and I think it's something that's very helpful. You know, a success story with Smart 911 is an incident that happened down in Traverse City. A gentleman who had a history of some asthma filled out a safety profile. He took a nap on his couch. He woke up to his house full of smoke, and he was able to dial 911 before he fell on the floor and was being overcome by the smoke. He couldn't speak, and all the dispatcher heard was a couple of coughs. His Smart 911 profile came up. They saw that he had in there a medical issue, so they sent fire rescue and police there. They arrive not knowing what's going on, find that it's a house fire, go in, pull him out, and saved his life. So that's the kind of thing that you just can't plan for. The other thing that this safety profile does is a lot of us now have dropped our landline phones. If you use just a cell phone, what we get when you call 911 is the cell tower that you're calling from, your cell phone number, and at times a estimated GPS location of where you're at. So if you're not able to speak to us, we have to start looking for you based on that GPS location. If you've created a safety profile and you provide us your address, now if the location on the cell phone's matching your address, now we have the address where we can send help. So it is definitely a good thing with cell phones today. Now the other product that we're launching is Marquette Alerts. And what this is a mass notification program that emergency management is going to be using. The nice thing is you sign up, a single sign up. Go to smart911.com and you'll have check boxes for the type of alerts that you would like to receive, whether they're weather-related alerts, evacuation alerts, civil emergencies, other types of emergencies. You just hit the check boxes, and if we have an issue where we have to send out an evacuation notice, a severe weather notice, flooding, whatever the emergency may be, you will receive that alert, and you can choose how you receive that alert. You can get it via text message, you can get it via email, or a voice message on both cell phone and landline. And we are able to be very specific with these alerts. We can go to a map and literally draw a 2-block radius, and anybody who's signed up within that 2 blocks, they're the only people going to get those alerts. We'll also look to have an opt-in program with our alerts, so if somebody is traveling into the area, let's say they're coming to the Food Fest or some other event in Marquette County, then a Cayman on ski race, they can opt in while they're here to get alerts while they're here, and then when they leave, they put a time frame on how long they want the alerts to be sent to them, and after that expires, then they no longer get those alerts. And that alert program and Smart 911 both are UP-wide, and Smart 911 actually is a national program. So any dispatch center in the country that has Smart 911, if you're vacationing in Florida and the center down there has Smart 911, you dial 911 down there, they're going to get your safety profile. So it is a national program, and it's in 48 of the states, I believe, at least in some of the areas in that many states. So it's something that will travel with you.
I'm glad you said this, Pete.
Gary, the message that you receive, you said it's only good for 45 minutes and you lose it, correct?
Yeah, and if it's something where it's going to be a longer, drawn-out situation where we need that information longer, as an administrator, I can go in and extend that time. So for instance, if we have, like, say, a missing child, and we want to make sure we have that picture, we can extend that time. But then, when that incident is done, then we no longer have access to that information until the person calls 911 again.
In some cases, if, like in the wintertime, I went to a couple of houses and they don't use the front door. So you could put that use back door, so that would help. It wouldn't be wasted time stopping in front and then move the vehicle.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And if you have an unusual, like your address is on one street, but your access is better off the street or that's on the other corner, you can put that type of information in. Like I said, you can put in pictures of your house to make it easier for responders to see. And the other nice thing about Smart 911 is every 6 months, the system is going to send you a message as someone who has put the profile in and ask you to confirm your information. If you don't go in and do that, then the account becomes inactive. And what that does is it prevents us from having very old information that has not been updated. So that the oldest the information is going to be is 6 months without someone saying, yep, it's still all accurate. You can even also, too, attach vehicle information if you deem, so that if you're traveling and you have an issue, we could have your license plate number, vehicle description, that kind of stuff, too.
That's amazing. So this is ready to go. It's already
You can
in the works. And
go, and I encourage everyone to do as soon as you can. Go to smart911.com and fill out a safety profile.
With the college in the county, or multiple colleges in the area, are you notifying the universities and colleges
Yeah.
and how they're, because we've got their parents up here all the time and their
Right.
families
Yep.
back and
Yeah,
forth?
absolutely. That's, you know, we're, and we just launched this the end of February, but that is not only them and schools, but I'll be contacting service organizations, because obviously our special needs community, this is, I think, invaluable for those folks to be able to give us that information. If they're oxygen dependent, wheelchair bound, have specific allergies, those kind of things. All of that information can be put into this profile ahead of time. So if they're not able to tell us that, we can still tell the responders, you know, that information.
Does this tie in at all, or can it, with Life Alert type businesses where you've got the monitor and you just press it? Would it go automatically, or would they still have to go back into Smart 911 and kind of populate that?
It wouldn't so much work there because
'Cause
the
they're
trigger is
private.
dialing 911.
Okay.
And those type of services generally aren't, you
They're
know, there are
independent.
some that are located within Marquette County, but most of them aren't. So they're calling us from an 800 number, and so that wouldn't trigger the alert.
So if you have someone who does use that service,
Mm-hmm.
they really need to get in and do this. And I suppose they could probably put that in there, that they do have a lifeline or
Sure,
something.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, for sure.
Daycares too, I'm thinking that
Yep.
would benefit definitely.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
If they had to come
Quite frankly, I think it benefits everyone.
Right.
You know, most of us don't think about 911 until we need it. And this is just a quick and easy insurance plan, quite frankly.
Did I just read recently too that 911 isn't just, because you said emergency management, it's not just 911 anymore. It's not for an emergency. You want us to call you for basically everything, right? Did
Yes,
I
our
get that?
message to the public is quite simple. If you need police, fire, or EMS dispatched to your location, call 911. 911, when you dial 911, it gives us extra information when you do that versus trying to call our non-emergency number. So a lot of people who would say they come home and they see that their son's bicycle was stolen, they don't think that that warrants a 911 call. Well, literally what happens is if you call our non-emergency line, our dispatcher clicks that button instead of that button. We prefer you to call 911, because then if the call's disconnected or something else, we have some information on that call.
Okay, that's what I thought. Any other questions for Gary?
I
This
think
is-
it's great.
Yeah, this is great. Thanks, Pete, for connecting.
Thanks,
that.
Gary, for
You bet.
coming.
Thank you.
If I may,
Yes.
just a couple other quick things. As you know, we've been working with your fire department on connecting to the mobile computer for our computer-aided dispatch. And we have that install pretty much done as of this afternoon. We have a few more things to work on, getting the automatic vehicle location part of it working. But we should have that soon, once we have the training done. Your fire department's going to be the first agency in the UP on this system. And I'd like to thank Ron DeMars and Rob Cochran and Mike Gregorich. They've been great to work with. It's been a kind of a long time coming, but we are at the point where it is being installed, and training will happen soon for your fire department. So that's good news. And most likely this August, we will be seeking renewal for our millage, which funds about 95% of our budget. So that look for that again. That's going to be a 6-year millage renewal to keep us in operation. So thank you for
Great.
allowing me here. Can I leave these
Absolutely.
here? That's some
Sure.
documents that you can hand out to the public if need be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for your service too, and everybody involved. First in UP, I was going to mention that about our fire department. All right, staff reports are next. I don't know that we have a whole lot of staff here. Looks like fire is not. We know that Ron's on vacation. Anything that you want to share, Randy? Maybe from Ron, or we've got our reports in here, but
Yeah, well, Gary basically touched on it. I was just going to give you an update on the install of the equipment to connect with 911, so that is going well. Hopefully by the end of this week, that installation will be completed, and then we'll be ready for the training.
okay. sounds good.
The pumper is still out of commission. We're waiting for we're waiting on one bearing for the rear end. But again, we hope to have that completed by the end of the week as well.
Okay. Any questions for the manager on the fire? Okay. Kirk, have you got anything to share with your department? What's going on? Or you've got a few items on the agenda, but if there's anything you want, or does anybody have any questions for Kirk? What's happening in Public Works? We probably should have done that in when we did the agenda, the grant proposal. Everybody okay with that?
Sure.
Okay. We'll just move it up here.
So this is
Item 9.5.
one of the main things we've been working on. In addition to, we're still having, proposed developments coming in that's requiring quite a bit of review. Today I had a pretty lengthy meeting with MDOT and their engineers on the next year's roundabout project. They're in the early stages of design, so right now they're dealing with conflicts with all the utilities. So in addition to the roundabouts, they're installing quite a few culverts and drainage structures. So, and they're already existing, water and sewer, cable, telephone, lots of things underground. So, it's and of course they're under a time crunch to get this thing designed. So,
Can everybody hear?
is this working or
It's
There you
working.
go, that's better.
Have to keep it a little closer, that's all.
closer? Okay, I can bend over here. So, but the wastewater asset management, for which we received a grant, has been pretty time consuming. We have purchased data collectors, which actually we purchased last summer, and we were using those both in water and wastewater. We purchased some new software, which that was more a recent purchase. We've also purchased some additional O&M software, which is in the process right now. Next week we have our kind of a kickoff meeting on that with our that software provider. But a big part of it that's really time consuming is the condition assessment of the sewer mains and the manholes. So that's a proposal that we're looking at tonight. I'd actually applied for the grant 3 years ago, actually 4 years ago now. And in order to apply for that grant, I had to get pricing for eligible activities. And this was one of them. The original intent, I believe, of the grant was to go ahead and award the grants to qualified applicants. Well, what happened is they had so many that made the deadline and that had qualified activities listed. So they actually awarded the grants over a 3-year period based on a lottery. So we happen to be in year 3. So what has happened in the intervening 3 years is a couple of things. Is the tunnel vision portion of the application, number one, is under new ownership. So they have new equipment, and they're actually more compatible with today's world of GIS, which is also part of our grant application. Another thing is their unit pricing has increased as a result of that, primarily, by about 15%. But the big difference was we had the actual piping and manholes that we had identified in the grant initially proposal has increased like by 50%. Because before, it's based on age for one thing, and we were just basically doing a manual count of, you know, what we had. Well, things have tipped over the, you know, basically the 20-year limit in that intervening time. Plus, you know, we've actually started our data collection. So, so the quantity, the total quantities have increased significantly. So therefore, it's, you know, it's higher than the initial price. But we're at the stage where we need this service now. So what I'm looking for is approval of this unit pricing. So we've been working for them since last summer, basically. And another thing that changed between our first proposal we got from the most recently was last August. We just got one revised in March. The SAW grant had a lot of requirements, one being the level of the assessment. So it called for level 2 assessment. And a lot of the original grant proposals were only for level 1. And they were approved. Well, now in year 3, the DEQ has cracked down and said, well, you know, the requirement is level 2, so that's what, you know, you've got to do. So what they did was they actually reduced slightly, you know, the original proposal by raising the manhole to level 2, raising that unit price, but they reduced some of the other unit price. So it's only, you know, like a $1,500 difference between, it's actually less than what they submitted before. So, and again, I believe these estimates are probably going to be overstated. In fact, they say they're, you know, they can typically only access some of the pipes like 70 to 90%. So that could be a significant savings. But in any case, this is a necessary part of the asset management. It's something that we cannot do on our own because the equipment to do all this is not grant eligible. So one of these units, you know, all the equipment costs, it's the same as like a fire truck basically, you know, so it's not worth our while to, you know, to make that purchase. So that's why we hire people to do it. And this is pretty standard. In fact, even communities like Marquette, who have the equipment, still, you know, utilize this company to do the actual work. So, so basically what I'm asking for is approval of that unit pricing so that I can go ahead and get this project started.
So what, you're not really saying what amount of money you want, or do you need to do this before you can come back to us and request an amount? Is it just the 10%?
Well, it's going to be what it's going to be. So if you approve the unit pricing, you know, the total might be less. That's what I'm saying, because that's unknown at this time. I mean, we'll be able to eliminate some, like I know for a fact that some of our mains have been replaced. You know, we had some of our interceptor replaced.
So is it 260? We have to pay 10% of the 260? That was the grant? I'm just looking for a number of what you're asking for.
Correct, yes.
Okay, it's $260,609.
But because of the changes.
The $1,500 change.
Okay. We've already, let's see, we've already gotten reimbursed about $20,000. So we've only got like $180,000 to go for reimbursement.
Okay.
So yeah, the way it works is you make the application and you have to, first of all, the service that you're applying for has to be grant eligible, which this is, along with other activities. and you have to put a price in there. Well, the grant is based on that initial application. So if we exceed, then they're still only going to pay that max amount.
Okay.
So,
But of the 260 from the August proposal, we're only responsible for the 10,000. Or, I mean, I'm sorry, 10%. Right?
yes, yes.
Is this a reimbursable one, then? We have to pay the whole thing and then we get it back? You said
Yeah,
we
you
already
pay it,
got
then you get
some.
90% back. Correct.
Okay. And you didn't say which account this came out of either, so how are you funding this as you're going along? Just out of,
Well, actually, I believe that's a good question. Since it's reimbursable, I mean, it's coming out of the wastewater account, either contractual services or professional services. But because it's reimbursable, I believe actually Lois she was talking about changing it, but we need further discussion. Because she was going to book it as an asset, but it's not an asset, it's a service.
yeah,
So,
That's the expense.
okay. So I just want to make sure.
and one more point is, we have to, if we don't complete this, and we have a deadline, it's a 3-year deadline, but I'd certainly like to get it done sooner than November of 2019. You have to pay the grant back if you don't complete it. Because and by completing it, it's doing all this work. And then part of it is, after all this assessment is done, there'll be other consultants that'll be looking at basically a long-term capital improvement plan, okay? They'll analyze all the data that we've collected and that we're gonna be giving them, you know, the age and condition, as near as we can determine. They'll analyze that, and then there'll be another consultant that has to put it together. You have to identify, that's gonna be a number, you have to identify what is your gap. So your rates we're gonna cover right now, part of it, maybe not 100% of it. So at the end of the 3 years, you should have made, you don't have to make up the whole gap like right away, but by the end of the project, for it to be considered complete, you have to close the gap by at least 10%.
Okay, so what's our starting date for this? Does it go back to the August submission, August
No,
17?
It was,
Where's the 3 years fall or start?
it was whenever the grant agreement was signed, so that was 2016, November of 2016.
Okay. And you said, because you said to 19. So,
Much time.
total budget in August of last year was $260,609. It's been revised this March to $259,119 because of those changes. So you've already made some payments against the 260.
No,
Okay.
against other work, data collector and software.
Okay, which has nothing to do with the grant.
It does. This is not all the grant.
I was just going to say,
This
is
is
this
one
the
item.
whole grant?
This is the
Okay.
biggest item,
Okay.
but it's not the whole thing.
What's the dollar number on the total grant then?
That's the 202,000 that I mentioned.
So it's 200 plus the 260 is the total grant.
No, the grant's only for, my original estimate for everything, including this, was 224,000, I think it was. Okay,
Okay.
so we only get 90% of that back. So that number's fixed in stone,
The 224.
correct, yes.
That's all we get.
Yep.
And we have to do 10%.
No, 202,000.
Say that again?
202,000. The
200.
grant is for 90% of the project. The project,
Okay, okay.
the project was everything that I put in the application.
All right. So if the budget revised from March 1st is 259, what did you say you've already paid? Nothing to do with the grant so far?
Yes, it has to do with the parts of the grant, yes, the data collector and the software.
Okay. I don't, am I confused here, or Ernie, you have a question?
How much money are we gonna get from the grant?
$202,000.
202,000, and we're looking at 259,000.
Probably less, right. And there's other work to be done after this.
What I see in front of me is 259,119. That's, I think, we have to go with until we get a different figure.
Sure.
So you're talking $57,000 that wastewater is gonna have to
Correct.
come up with.
Or
So-
some number, yes, right.
So it's gonna be more than the 10%, which is, so the 10% of
Right.
259,000 is 25,000, so
Correct, yes.
really the wastewaters have to come up with neighborhood of $57,000 overall, using the figures that are in front of us and that too, so.
Right.
I wish you'd laid this all out ahead of
Yeah.
time, so we knew what we're talking about.
Confusing. But you said you've gotten some back already, you've been reimbursed.
Yep, about 20,000,
Yeah.
which comes off that 202,000.
Go ahead, Dave.
I guess I'm rather frustrated that we're being asked to make a decision,
Yeah, we don't even have all the.
and we
You know.
don't have a summary of what exactly we're talking about. We're being asked to approve the Tunnel Vision SAW grant proposal, but we don't have it's been dragging on for 3 years. We don't have a summary here of what we're actually agreeing to do. We don't have, the numbers are not, I mean, there should
You
be
mean an
just a
updated
piece of
summary,
paper with
or-
all that stuff on it.
Well, that was 3 years ago.
No. I wasn't here 3 years ago.
I understand that, yeah. So,
So I'm thinking we need to request a little more information if you want to get together after this, or if you want to talk deadlines, or we need
Okay.
it spelled out a little more clearly as to what you're asking for, what the time frame is, what you paid, what's required.
How much is left?
Well, I guess what I'd like to see
Deadlines
is that, more than just the grant proposal, I'd like to see what, I mean, we're committing to spend a whole bunch of money here that's not part of the grant proposal. I'd like to see what we're planning on spending for the whole project, where the money's coming from, how much of that we're gonna get back on this proposal. I realize it started 3 years ago, but I'm sure you've been keeping track of this someplace along the way.
sure.
It'd just be nice to see a summary of what all that's about, so that you can make a decision based on, this is the money we have to come up with, this is the accounts it's coming out of.
Yeah, check with
I
Lois. and
really
make
don't know
sure.
that we have the money that we're even talking about having. It's more a trust me, we've got the money thing.
Well, if it is only 202 we're going to get, that's, obviously, it's more than 10% if it's going to be 50,000. So there's a disconnect here somewhere that I'm missing, unless everybody else that gets it.
I mean, I understand where we're going, I just don't understand what it's gonna cost us.
Where it's coming from and what our balance is and the deadline. So if you want to do a one-page, how are you deadline-wise? Do you have to have something tomorrow or next week, or?
Well, there's not a deadline, except everybody and his brother wants to use these people here. So,
Scheduling then is an issue.
correct, yes.
Ernie?
What's the time frame for them to complete this project?
It's gonna take a couple of months for them to do the work.
And it has to be completed so that we get get the grant dollars.
Well, right, so, but also so that we can proceed with the asset management.
I think I go along with trustee Wigan. We need
A
to
little
have
more
some more
detail.
information in that too, so.
Yeah, a chronology and something a little more honed down. And actually how much money you're talking about, what account you think you can come out of. Because this, I mean, we got the contract from them, that doesn't tell us what you're looking for. So,
How long is it gonna take to pay for it, you know?
yeah, so if we can get it on the next agenda, that would be great,
Okay.
appreciate that.
Something in writing, though.
Anything, yeah, something, a spreadsheet or something, a little more detail.
Okay.
Any other questions for Kirk? Anything you want to share about anything else in the department? Because it's kind of a staff report, too.
No, that's pretty much the,
This is the biggie, hey?
yep.
Okay,
Lynn?
yes. Dave?
I'm curious where we stand on the water asset management program. Is that done?
It's not complete, it was submitted. And of course, that's not reimbursable, so it's, and plus I'm trying to, there are two programs, one that's, you know, I'm getting a grant for, and one that I'm not getting a grant for. And there are different deadlines, but they need to be,
I thought the water
Comparable.
The water deadline was the first of the year.
it was the end of the year. I got it submitted, but it's not complete. The end result of this has to be that capital improvement plan, okay? Which is developed, I mean, we had a capital improvement plan, and I submitted the last one we had, which was 2016. Although supervisor tells me that that was not approved by the board, it was only approved by the planning commission, so.
Well, it was through the budget, but we didn't really talk about it. That was the misnomer.
Right, yeah. But in any case, and this is much more extensive. But that's the end result. That's like the last step. But there are a lot of steps to go through before that. The data collection has been huge. And we haven't really, we only just started the sanitary. So we need to.
Is it the data collection for water, is that done?
That's done, yeah.
Any idea when we'll get the final results of, like here, it's complete for the water?
Well, yeah, certainly, when it's done, yeah. I mean, I could give you the.
I guess that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
You got a forecast on when we're gonna narrow that down, and we can, I mean, it's gonna be done there.
Well, it's gonna, like I said, I gotta do them both at
I
the
thought it was
same
gonna be
time.
done, I thought the deadline was January 1st, I thought it was gonna be done then.
Well, it was, but, you know, every community's in the same situation. You know, everybody submitted something, but it wasn't much, so.
So are they supposed to give you a report or something that you get back? Is that what you're waiting for? You've submitted what you need to, and then,
They haven't gotten anything back. But there's a lot more work to do to make it like a fully functional
by you or by them? By the state?
by us,
By us, okay.
not by me. I mean, I'm doing the majority of it, but I mean, it's definitely a joint effort here.
Do you have to do them together? You have to do water and wastewater and have them done to have it complete? Or can we just not look at water?
Yeah, you can look at water.
Okay, I think that's
But-
what Dave was asking, right? What have we
Sure.
got so far?
Well, we got the data collection. I could give you that.
Okay. Is that-
No,
is that kind of
That's
what you're
just a list of the
looking
assets.
No, I guess what I'm asking is when is the asset management program for the water gonna be complete to the point that you can look at life expectancies, replacement rates, forecasts? I'm assuming that asset management program is gonna forecast the kind of money you need to spend
Right, yeah.
for repairs and replacement, in what years you can anticipate spending it. When is that kind of information gonna be available?
It's probably going to be at least the end of this year.
Okay.
Just on the water side, you're saying, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
Anything at budget time? Would be that close?
Well, that'd be ideal,
August, September?
you know. I'll do the best I can, but it's, you know, this is really the most head-scratching part, you know.
Imagine it's very comprehensive. I can just try to imagine.
But, you know, the thing is, the wastewater is going to be the Cadillac, and, you know, the water's going to be the water, or the Chevrolet, for now. I'd like them to be comparable, though. And that's going to take more than, you know,
Just a few minutes.
correct, yeah.
All right. Well, maybe we can kind of work on it in the next couple of weeks and see if I've got some ideas of what you're looking for, and
Well, I'm
give you
not
some
looking
guidance
for,
on how to put it together for us, so
I'm
we
not
can-
looking for anything in particular. I'm just wondering when we can get some of those numbers, because when you're looking at the long-range planning for where you're gonna get money and how much money you're gonna have to spend on infrastructure replacement over the next 20 years, that's what the whole asset management program is for.
Right.
Just to be able to forecast that
And that's
out.
going to be a while.
And it's nice to have a Cadillac program, but you gotta walk to work for the next 2 years. It doesn't really mean a whole lot.
Well, we'll kind of address the CIP in May too, so let's do that. Let's just try to, I'll work with you or Randy and see what we can come up with the next couple of weeks to put this in some kind of an informational format.
Correct.
Okay? Sound good? I put it down for the next agenda. John, did you have something?
Only that I think, rather than wait for 2 weeks to have the presentation made, I think it would be useful if you have the time to visit with Kurt in the next 2 weeks to be satisfied that you are receiving what we are going to need, so we don't have this dilemma at the next
2
meeting.
weeks, right? Yeah, that's why I figured we could put something together in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you.
And even if we get it sooner, we can get it out to you and then have the
No,
discussion at the meeting.
Either way, but I think it would be best for everybody involved, for Kurt as well, to have your critiquing of what he's going to present to the board.
Yep, that's what I'm thinking. Pete, did you have something too?
Just wonder how we did over the winter. It's not over yet, but I mean, as far as freeze-ups and that, is there any areas that we're still having problems with the freeze?
Well, we're actually on some let runs now, so we're good. We did have, well, we had a few, I'm not sure, not a lot, but maybe 3 or 4 meters that were freezing that were, you know, like uninsulated walls or something like that. But we had an actual freeze up. I think we've only had a couple. And that's usually, you know, we kind of wait and see, because every year's different. You know, you don't want to jump the gun, start running water. But and only those that have had a history of freeze ups. So, and that's been going on for a while now.
Anything else for Kirk? Okay, thanks, sir. Assessing is the next one on here, and Elsie gave us a little report. Anybody have any comments or issues or questions? Randy might be able to answer something. The heck is it?
Well, basically, what Dulcie's done is giving you a snapshot of where they are in assessing in terms of what's been happening with values in the township and what's anticipated for your potential revenues coming up.
Our anticipated revenues have increased by what?
Roughly 4% as of right now.
Running about 7, you said, every year for quite a while, right?
Mm-hmm. Between 5 and 7 has been the average over the last probably 10 years.
That was before a lot of this other stuff kind of got in the way.
You know, and much of that has to do with development, obviously. You know, property that's undeveloped isn't worth as much as it is developed.
Anything else for that?
How are we doing as far as getting to all the properties? Trying to get caught up.
Yeah, they're mainly they've been tied up right recently with coordinating with county to make sure that the records are accurate with the county. If you take a look at page, well, the second page, it says L4022 up in the right-hand corner. That gives you a good snapshot of 17 to 18 Board of Reviews in terms of what they're seeing in terms of values. Real property and personal property on that one page. I believe Board of Review is closed now, finished?
Wednesday. We'll finish it
Wednesday, okay.
We're on recess.
Tomorrow. Oh, that's right. Recess the last meeting.
Yep. Because of some other county things going on.
Is that the one where they didn't get the flood, the dam breaking information out to adjust some property values?
Yes, the, what is that called, between 49 and 50, the factor? I believe that's the factor that's
Oh, the application of the
trying to be
factor?
honed down.
Talking about the two dams on the basin?
Forestville, yes.
If I heard that right, it's out now, it's just got out too late for the meetings?
We just scheduled a meeting so that we knew we had something in place, and they thought they wouldn't have an answer until yesterday, so I haven't talked to Dulcie today, if they,
I did not hear that she got any information back today from the county.
basically what it means, if the factor isn't correct, it's gonna have to be applied through the whole county, which would obviously change our tax roll or base. And if not, if it's in those two, between those two factors, then we're okay, we can go and just adjourn and we're good. This thing's not the easiest animal to try to understand.
However, the protesting is done.
Yes, that part is. And we only had 12, 14, something like that, come in and ask questions. Okay, we can move on to community linkage. The first item is about the Marquette County Solid Waste Management Authority. I've brought issues to you before with them. And the most recent announcement by their board or staff was the glass recycling issue that they've kind of surprised me with, or I'm not sure everybody, but apparently we haven't been recycling glass for the last 6 years. So actually, my question to you tonight is not so much about that specific issue, although we can address it or talk about it, or if you want to do something or say something. I'm concerned about the pattern that seems to be emanating from that group. And I listed some of the things that they've had as issues in the last 2 or 3 years that I've been involved with them. Starting with the separation from the county, from the authority, and the somewhat apparent conflict of interest with legal counsel, being a county commissioner. And since the authority is a county-appointed, partially county-appointed entity, that question came up. Some of these issues went to the Attorney General, and Representative Keevala was involved at the time to try to sort out some of these issues. Then I also sent you part of their documentation. You've got about 6 or 7 pages of documents that they've sent to me or to the board about their agreement with the city and the county. And one of the last statements was that they had reached the end or the apex of the reclamation fund of about 2.3 million or something was the number. And they were no longer going to contribute 0.75 cents per ton. It's almost 3 million, 2.991329. They weren't going to contribute that to that anymore. They were going to put it in their capital fund. And Randy sent me, I hadn't seen either tonight or last night's paper, a couple ads for some major construction projects that they're going to be doing now. So my first thought was, okay, if they don't have to contribute, why should the rest of us contribute anymore? So that got me thinking. I put a meeting together with the Sands Township supervisor, who has a vested financial interest. Obviously, the solid waste is going out there. So she's a lot more knowledgeable about this than I, and we talked about possibly getting together with the director of the solid waste and having a conversation to try to get some answers to this, figure out if that reclamation fund is done and they're going to live on the interest for the next so many years, and I believe that The date got pushed out to 2050 to be the closure date now. Fire.
Marquette Township fire.
So I'd like to kind of get into this and find out a little more information, see if we have an opportunity maybe not to contribute to this anymore. And then looking at their actual movement of that money into, the way I read it was their contribution that they were going to move to capital. So what happens to our contribution? You'll also see the tipping fee numbers. I gave you some of those figures. We just went back 5 years, and this year between residential and commercial, we've contributed $153,000 in tipping fees, you know, as a community. So there's a lot of money at play here, and I just like to kind of have a little better feel. I didn't want to start a big thing if you guys are going to say, you know, this is fine, we're good, don't worry about it. But if you want me to get some information and have some meetings and kind of question some of this stuff, but the bottles were or the glass was the tipping thing for me. It's like, okay, I have documentation that they're talking in the last, you know, newspapers and emails and minutes and agendas that we have been recycling glass. And it's like, what else are they going to come up with? So I'd really like to dig into this and pursue it and have some meetings and maybe have them come in and talk to us and try to get some answers on what their thought process is on how they see this going forward. I know they asked the Sands Township Board to put in a new road, and I think that's where those bids were let, and Sands Township said, no way. If you need a road, you put it in. So she's also going to do she's going to put up a list of questions, and we can visit with at least either their board. We're both going to try to get to the board meeting tomorrow and talk to them about this. So I'm looking for, what would you like me to do?
Dave was first.
Dave was first.
I find this whole discussion amazing. We just signed an agreement, how long ago?
Yeah.
That, and it was apparent that when we signed the agreement, that we don't have any say in what they're doing. We have
I didn't even write the representation part down.
We have no representation. We've got an agreement signed. So now what do you do? What are your options? You can stand in the corner and hold your breath all day long. It isn't going to do any good. There's nothing we can do.
Well, my recommendation is that we compose a letter to the county. I believe there's 3 seats that the city gets because they're the primary user, and the county appoints 3, and the Sands Township gets 1. So the problem too with the county's appointments is that they're primarily city people. So,
But the makeup of that board is always going to be in the pocket of the city.
it's too, yeah. And again, they have the biggest impact. They have the biggest percentage.
Well, I guess my question is we'll proceed and we'll go ahead and we'll complain about this and we'll ask for some answers. But when we're all done and we're all done thumping on our desk and everything, what do you do about it?
Well,
They have been totally unresponsive to us so far. And we've raised question after question when they were talking about the agreement. They've done nothing. So what do you expect out of them now? They're not going to do anything again. We can complain all day long, and all we're doing is making a public record of it, and they're going to continue to do whatever they want to do.
Well, that's part of the problem with an authority. My opinion of an authority, that's part of the problem, because they can do whatever they want. But they are also representing us. If you're talking about the Heritage Trail or somebody, or even the agreement, and it's not an authority, but the agreement we have with wastewater with the city, that works pretty well because we have representation.
Well, we have 1 township representation from 19 townships.
Yes.
I mean, that's just ridiculous on the face.
So the direction I'm looking for is a letter to the county they're the appointing body. That needs to change when these terms come up. That's
Yeah, but how is it going to change when you got a board member who's on both boards?
Yeah. Well, you know, if you want to cut a tree down, you don't start at the top branch. You start at the bottom and figure out what And I'm not saying I'm trying to cut them down, but you have to start at the bottom and figure out how to have an impact. This is just one or two of the things that we can do from the county direction. John, I think you're next.
Just a quickie. The last time that we visited this, pardon me, the last time that we visited this, we made the complaint that we didn't think we had as much representation that we deserved. We asked the county, who does appoint a number of people to that board, that they not make the same mistake they made in the past, that they appointed another person from the city in addition to the group that the city appointed. I mean, making it a log, where there wasn't any way you were going to have anything but what the city wanted, and Sands. What was the result of that request that we made to the county, that they appoint somebody from the township group rather than make it actually an illegal appointment of another person from the city? What was the result of that?
I don't think we made a formal request.
Wes, I personally made a formal request at one of their meetings that the county do that.
Well, but
Well, what the hell?
you don't have any authority to do that there.
Oh, well,
You're just
all right, then you've got the
audience.
authority to do that.
Well,
It
it has
has-
to come from here, though.
It has to start, though, by getting the county to be responsive and getting more people from the, with the township interest in mind on the board that makes the decisions. Even if they don't have enough votes to overcome the number from the city, at least they can make a public presentation there that makes sense. I think that'll go a lot further than sitting down and having discussions with somebody who really reports to that group.
Well, no, I want clarification on some of the things that have been coming out in the news media or online. We need to have a little more information
But
before
I
we
think
can ask
Dave's point
questions.
is well made. It doesn't matter what you come up with. They're going to go ahead and continue to do that, what they want to do and what they think they can do that's in their interest, until we can get more representation on the board that makes the decisions and can control the employees that they have.
Well, and that's what I'm asking for, that we contact the
Okay, all right,
county.
try it your way then.
Contact the county and see what we can affect in, first of all, getting representation. But like I started to say, this is two different issues. These are philosophical issues of how the authority operates, so that we can be a part of that. And the second part of it is what's going on with the methodology that you're using to run your organization. Because we're a part of that. We're paying for it. If you tell me, forget it, I will forget it. But I would like to put together a letter and challenge the fact that we have no representation and we're paying. We have no voice. They won't listen. We may or may not agree with all these things that they're doing. I'm just looking for direction.
What can you do about it? Okay.
I would
got a question.
absolutely suggest that we put together a letter and pursue it. I guess I have no hope that it will come to anything, but you can't just let it go. I would think that, and it was discussed when we were talking about signing the agreement, and they were going to be more responsive to our needs and all that stuff, and it was gone the day we voted to sign the agreement. They quit being more responsive. We haven't seen them here since.
Well, and because
For all
I,
of me, we would contact our legal group and see if there's a way to rescind our agreement, because they're certainly not living up to their end of the bargain. And I think that gets their attention. I think we should go ahead and send them a letter, and we should complain, and we should pursue this, but I think we can pursue it for the next year, and it won't do any good. The only thing that will do them good is if there's some kind of a challenge to the agreement. And I think there may be some grounds to do that on.
okay, I don't know if Pete or Randy had their hands up first.
Pete.
I just had one of your questions here about conflict of interest. They had some ruling on that. You might ask Darlene about that. They had that about a year and a half ago. I was going to some of the meetings. And then I don't know how that turned out.
Well, they got 3 different opinions.
Yeah.
And or I should say Darlene's, because she's the one that approached it from Sands, their attorney said it was a conflict, the county said it wasn't a conflict, and the authority said it wasn't a conflict. So obviously they stuck up for themselves.
What a
and
surprise.
That's where the whole
And it
issue
just-
with going
and
to the Attorney General.
And also about they're not being upfront with it, because why did it take, when did they come out with no glass? And they've been doing it for over 5 years.
Yeah.
You know, what else are they, you know?
It's not even that they were not doing it and not making an issue, but they were saying they were doing it, and they weren't. It's like, okay, should everybody else do that?
It's just a hard meeting to attend.
It is, and I'm sorry, because I've been sick the last 8 weeks, I
Yeah.
missed 2 of their meetings, and Darlene was tied up with other things too, so. But we're gonna start going, because I had asked you if it was all right to attend their meetings, and you said, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
But-
anyway, go.
So I just, looking for direction. Randy, you had your hand up too.
Yeah, I agree with Trustee Wiegand. I don't have a problem with sending a letter with our concerns, but they're an authority, they're gonna do what they'd like to do. Other communities in this area have the same concerns as us, because they got told also about the glass that was being recycled, that it wasn't. And I agree with Trustee Wiegand, until they get a legal challenge from someone or some group, I don't think they're gonna change their ways.
Okay, thanks. Randy, you had your hand up too.
Well, just a suggestion on my part. They are an authority. They're an authority that's comprised of members. 19 of the 22 members are townships. You have a township association, county township association annual meeting coming up here shortly, I do believe.
Next month.
The agreement must have some kind of a provision in it dealing with amendment. I would suggest that if you're going to do a letter, that you get an opinion from Mr. Zappa with regard to what that amendment process may be in the current contract. Draft a letter and take it to the MCTA meeting and ask 18 other townships to sign it with you and submit it to the county board.
Sounds good.
I think that's a
Idea.
good idea.
Yeah.
Ernie?
When I saw this in the paper, and then when I got information from you, and listening to what the city said to the group, the authority, I couldn't believe it. To me, flat out lie. There's no question about that. I don't know, maybe I lived in a different world, but you get someone like that lying to you if something been not going on for 6 years, and then they say, we're gonna stop it now. I have very little faith in the individuals involved. My personal feeling is they need to be replaced, the whole works, from that, if they let this go on. There's no question about that. They have no business being in a position of power at all, at any level, to do something like this here, to lead everybody on and then find out that it was a flat-out lie that they're saying. So, that's my personal feeling on that. And on the 75 cents, they're authority, they can do what they want, but they're taking 75 cents from what originally was set for closure, and arbitrarily moving it someplace else, and that, there's no question about that, because I go back into the 90s when this all started, there was money put there for closure, and that's what it's supposed to be for, and they're arbitrarily moving it to someplace else.
Well, and this is, I believe it's their portion, their contribution, not necessarily ours.
They don't have any money. It all comes from the group that's putting money into it, so.
But also the closure date's been moved too, you know, every time you talk
Because
to
they've
them.
been effective too, it's
Right.
a lot of the processes they're doing.
But I have very little faith in them and that, because I attended a few of the meetings and it was, I just walked away. It was unbelievable as to how they handle it and that. They don't want to talk about anything up front of that. They don't want to listen to anyone that says anything, so.
Yep, that's why I'd like to pursue it.
Well, I think, Lynn, you should follow us through and start getting more information and come back and discuss it again with us.
Okay.
I think that's what you're looking for, isn't it?
That's
right.
what I was hoping for, that I can, and obviously if I get any kind of draft or talk to Roger or whatever, well, you'll get a copy of that, but.
But I would ask Roger for a draft somewhat, and see what we can do, and then continue on, and then come back. I don't think you need a motion for that, just consensus say we should move ahead with this, so.
Okay.
There's something wrong, and it's.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Okay, appreciate that. Policy governance. I gave you a new calendar along with what we have so far. I hope it's not too confusing. I kind of skipped the first couple months because we put them all together. And then I split it up by meetings because we decided we were going to kind of use the first meeting a month or second meeting a month for different things. I added Gary Johnson on here for tonight's as far as the privilege comment. So the idea that Susan was trying to get us to do with the calendar, with this spreadsheet, is to make this our template for our agendas. So we can write anything on here anytime we want to and schedule it and have it all set to go. And then, again, you can see that it's board education, privilege comment, community linkage, policy discussion. And then the ends and the means are what we're using not only to contribute to the agenda items, but to be the end result as well. And the wrap-up, in my mind, then, would be the manager's report. And he typed up a real quickie to kind of give you a format of what that was going to look like. So what I'm kind of thinking, the way we would do this, is tonight we'll do like we did in the last couple meetings, is look at 2.6 and 3.1 from the ends and the means sides of the PG, and see if there's something that comes up, just like we did last time. We put specific items on the agenda so that when they come up, it's all set. And if we don't have any governance type things to have on the agenda, that's fine. Just have our regular business items. But we'll at least have 10 months of discussion, actually 9.5, on the ends and the means for each one. Does that make sense, or any questions so far? Dave?
I guess this whole thing leaves me a little confused. It would seem without the manager's report that addresses these, the ends, and addresses a report on each one of these issues on how, like we got yesterday.
His report, you mean?
Right.
Okay.
I mean, without that, it doesn't do us a lot of good to discuss the policy.
Right.
It would be nice to have seen this, at least when the packet come out.
I know, and mine too. But we kind of got January and February together to just kind of catch up. So I think April's going to be good, because now he's got his format. And I wasn't real clear with him either that this was going to be a real discussion item. He thought I was just doing this for information for you. And I said, no, we got to get it going. We keep, I don't want to keep putting it off.
Well, if I understand what we're doing here is we're going over these policies, and we're looking at the reporting that comes from the manager to determine if we're missing something on the policy, if we need different reports.
Right.
So until we actually get the report and have time to digest it, you really don't know, I mean,
What to do?
to change the policy. We just
Right.
did the policy.
That's the whole idea. We might go a year or two or whatever without changing policies. What it is, it's more of a monitoring. It's making sure that the policies we have in place and the responsibility that we've delegated to the manager and his staff is being it's in a loop. It's constantly being looked at. That's what you want to do. You're monitoring the performance of what you've delegated. So we haven't had a chance to do that yet because we didn't have Randy's report. Again, we're kind of still playing catch-up.
Well, and I guess when I'm looking at this, if you go down to 2.6.4.
On his?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he suggests in there that he's going to explore a different, some different option for us there to ensure that the risk management is satisfied.
264?
So I would think we need to come back and address that again after there's been some exploration of what's available and what we should be doing. There should be a recommendation coming out of the manager when he gets an opportunity as to how we should address that. And then the board gets to decide if we want to address it that way or not.
Right. That's what I'm thinking.
But when you go down there and you see his assessment on like 2.6.5 and he gives you an example of what we're doing and how we're covered, and then he says no current need for us addressing that further, then that brings that to an end if we all agree that that's
If we agree.
satisfies
Yeah,
it.
that's his recommendation. If we feel that what he's doing and how it's set up and the policies that are in place are working, that's great. We go to the next one.
I just thought I was something missing
Nope.
the last meeting when we went through this. We just kind of went through and read all the policies and moved on.
Well, because we kind of had to catch up.
Didn't make a lot of sense.
And Randy hadn't had a chance to do a report yet.
That was me when I walked out of the meeting scratching my head. That was what that was about.
That was it. I think we should take a little time and talk about these. I don't want to just say, yeah, he submitted it, and we, go to the next meeting, and we can just touch on these.
Well, what my intent was to put to you what my interpretation of those statements are and how we're covering those currently. And basically, at that point, then the board would potentially review those policies that I've identified as meeting those criteria to see if you felt as a board that they needed to be adjusted. Then you would give me some direction and say, we want to see one where there'll be left-handed blue widgets in every corner, that kind of thing. So then we would go do that. We'd make it a project and go get that project done. So, I mean, that's the kind of exchange back and forth that I would see this policy governance process pursuing, identifying what we already have. You've identified a whole list of policies that you want to make sure that we're good on. Many of those we already have policies in place, so we're looking at those to see how they need to be adjusted basically to meet current needs. Are they currently up to date? Were they done 10 years ago and they need to be adjusted along those lines, or are there now things that are occurring today that weren't a consideration back when the policies were drafted that now need to be addressed somehow, either as part of an existing policy or a new policy for operational purposes to reach the goals and objectives that the board wants to achieve. So that's the format in which I put this together as the first one for you to review.
I couldn't have said it better myself. That's exactly what I'm thinking. So again, because we're kind of playing catch-up, and if you guys decide you want to have a meeting a half an hour before our regular meeting and look at the policy governance once a month, or have a work session, or if you want to have it in part of our, we need to address it, so.
That was my next suggestion, rather than spend
That's
all of our board meeting time doing this.
I'm happy with that.
This is, in my opinion, this is work session stuff.
Yep, I would love to do that.
Until we get it laid out, and then we can
Yep.
get it going.
I mean, after you've gone through it all the first time, and maybe in 2019, then it's a matter, it's a quicker review, number one, to
You
make
can
sure.
do it during a meeting.
Then you can do it, you can brush through it during a meeting, but to get us set up, because we're missing a lot of reports here that are recommended that we put some kind of a report together on. And that's work session stuff, in my
That would
opinion.
be great, thank you. That's where I was going. So, sorry, Ernie, go ahead.
Just one, going through this and looking at it, and number 2.6.7, which is say there is all fine. Someone else is doing it, and you're talking about an annual review. This is something on a work session, is to look at who in the township has the expertise to look at what they're doing to make sure it's meeting our needs in that too. So that's something else we have to look at.
Yeah, we obviously need to talk about each one of these, because The policies drive the township. That's how we function with staff and our procedures and what we sign and don't sign and agree to.
And specifically on that one, on the 2.6.7, we review that agreement with them, the plan of work, every year. We review that to, to address those kinds of things. And if there are issues that the board feels are not being properly handled or properly addressed, that's where we would insert that, is in that annual review.
And this is when we would find it and talk about it.
Correct.
Because it's like any other contracts we were talking about. Pete's mentioned that. We need to do this on a periodic basis, every month, every year, whatever.
I understand that, but when you talk about electronic data and the files and everything else, being able to understand what they're doing with it from our standpoint, to have someone here to have the knowledge to ask those questions and that. So maybe because I'm going back 20 years when this is some of the things I used to do and that, and I've gotten out of it, so I don't know all the questions anymore.
Well, and the real questions basically would come from either, the department heads that are dealing with those programs, like assessing. Is it meeting the requirements of, Lois and Dulcie with regards to finance? Is it meeting, is our current programming and what they're doing meeting the requirements of GASB and all of the things that they have to meet for Jason and Isaac on planning and zoning? Do they have the appropriate tools to do the mapping that they need to do and to coordinate with other programs that they have to access to gather information from the state or from the county or whatever? Those are the kinds of things that are in that annual review. They all look at it basically to identify what shortcomings there may be in the current programming or the data collection or the data retrieval capability, reliability of the system. All of those things go into that annual review before we bring it back to the board for renewal. Or to go out for bids for somebody else, which we may do. We've now been under this contract for almost 5 years. Maybe we test the market and see what else is out there. Every day there's new people sending emails saying, yes, we now have the capability to do this. Some do, some don't. We don't want a brand new startup company, but at any event, those are the kinds of things that we look at internally.
And then,
On a work session, I think, as Dave said, I think these
Absolutely.
things would come up.
Yep.
and then we plug them into the calendar. If we decide we want to have 906 or one of their tech people or whatever the issue is, come, we put it in the calendar, and it ends up as privileged comment or board education. So that, again, that fuels the agendas.
Or have your primary users, the department heads,
Yeah.
come to that work session and really work through it.
Sound good? So, when can we get together again?
This is where we are.
You have your calendars with you? How much time do you want to spend? Just an hour, or you think 2 would be good? My next week looks good if you want to do it sooner than later.
Now, while you're looking at your calendars, I'm presuming you're going to want me to go back and catch 2.3, 7, 8, and 9.
We should give them time to do that.
Yeah, next week is bad for me.
Okay, that's fine.
The 2.6 was what we had targeted, but we haven't done anything on.
We can kind of talk
7,
about
8,
that
and 9.
in 3-1 tonight, if you want to just spend a couple minutes like we did, so at least we're staying in the calendar.
Well, for April, I could throw 5 in there and do all of them for April, your April meeting. 2.5 is targeted for April.
You want to have,
We could do 3, 5, 7, 8, and 9. 2.3, 2.5, 2.7, 2.8, 2.9. They all run those all run basically together. 3 through 9 run together. 5 is a separate one.
well, but do we want to have a work session before the next meeting? Or do you want to try to schedule the work session 3 weeks out and then talk about it for the second meeting of April?
It really depends on who you're gonna have come in and if you wanna have somebody come in and talk about it.
I don't know that we need to think so much about that as go over this and see, catch up.
You're big on this catch-up thing.
Yes, because it took us too long to get it going. We have a lot more to cover the rest of the year. And some of them will be duplicates. So next week's not good, you said, Pete, right? Week after,
I'm gone the week after, so
about the week of the 9th.
I'm back.
How does that look for everybody?
What day you talking about?
Doesn't matter to me. What's a good time,
It's in
Randy?
the afternoon.
Afternoons. After
When?
2 or 3?
Probably
Week
2.
of April
So like
9th?
2 to 4?
What,
Work?
what day?
Pick a day. The week of April 9th, sometime between 2 and 4.
About the 10th?
Thoughts?
Wednesdays typically work better for you than other days.
Well,
The 10th is a perfect day for me.
10th is fine.
What time?
Something
2 to
like 2 to 4?
4 is fine.
How's that, guys?
On, what's the date you said?
Tuesday the
can't,
10th.
we didn't hear the date.
Tuesday, the 10th, from 2 to 4. Does that work?
No,
Okay. Wednesday?
Wednesday, as long as it's after 2 o'clock, I'm fine.
Does Wednesday work?
11th.
The 11th?
Oh.
2 to 4?
Yeah.
We good?
Someone make a motion, then. I'll-
Wednesday,
2 to 4?
and the date is what?
The 11th.
2 to
Wednesday,
4.
April 11th, 2 to 4. And we're going to catch up.
Policy governance.
Policy governance.
And make a motion, we schedule a meeting, work session on April 11th, Wednesday, from 2 to 4, Township Hall.
All right, I'll second it.
And the purpose will be for policy governance.
Okay. So tell me then, for the April 3rd meeting, you want to hold off on 2-5?
Yeah.
Kind of do this, do you want to go total catch-up? And then we'll look at that, all of that in the 17th meeting. Does that sound right?
I think our time is better spent in the work sessions discussing this than here, because this is more of our business meeting. And it's going to be long and drawn out if we do that. So I think we can touch a little bit on this during the business meeting, but our main discussion will be at the work session.
I agree.
We'll get more done at work sessions.
In the work sessions also for
They're
the,
still taped anyway.
they're online, and the residents have a chance to view those, so they can see what we discuss.
Okay, so we'll cover everything,
The 2.5.
including April's, on the April 11th meeting, work session. We'll cover everything up through April, 2-5. Through April. So we should be able to start May, because we don't have anything we have to talk about in May. We want to try to target the budget for the first May meeting, and CIP part of it, I mean. And then we should be good for the rest of the year. We'll have the sheriff's
Second meeting in
contract
April.
and,
Yeah, second meeting in April, you've got the Phase 2 of the water project target.
where did I not put that on there? Yep, I missed that. My apologies. PW2, I put it for the second meeting in April. Okay.
Staff report.
Okay, thanks. Well, that'll tie in, 'cause we'll have gotten everything done up until then. Ha. Right? Okay.
We're moving in that
So there's a
direction.
motion and
I
a
was just
second.
gonna say, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
I'll get that posted tomorrow and sent out to the board.
Thank you, thank you. That's a toughie. Okay, so we're gonna kind of skip these. We'll save that till the work session. All right. Manager Gerard, consider request for letter of support, Republic Township.
It's pretty straightforward. Republic Township is looking for funding, external funding to fix the dam, the historic Republic Dam on the Michigamme River. They're asking for letters of support from neighboring communities. I did put together a draft letter for you to consider. If that's acceptable to you, I can sign that, redate it, and send it out tomorrow to the agency that would be considering the funding.
Problems, questions,
I
issues?
move that we accept the letter from the manager and send it to Republic Township.
Support.
Send it to DEQ, I think it was.
Yep.
The
Or
district office.
wherever it has to go.
Local district office.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Consider Planning Commission bylaws amendment. Got our Planning Commission chair here. And, suggested or recommended bylaws in the packet. And I don't know if Dave, you want to comment too, or if Mike, we want to explain it, or anybody have questions?
If I just make a comment to start out with, that was.
Explain it?
It is essentially, it's required that the bylaws be amended every 5 years. We missed that slightly by 3 years, is why we went ahead and did it. It's actually, they were approved by the Planning Commission, and they became effective on the meeting on the 14th. And essentially, other than clean up some verbiage in the old bylaws, it added a code of conduct in section 4. And that is essentially the only change from what was there before. It clarified a few things in the old bylaws about the meeting times and excused and unexcused absences, and what a little better definition on what constituted both. But that's there if it's in your packet. That's why we put it in there so you could read it. So.
Yes, Ernie?
I read this through and I said, okay, that sounds good. That the only problem I had was I don't know what is new and what was dropped.
I said the same
And that
thing.
From the last one.
Yeah, there was actually nothing new or dropped from the meeting before this one. You got the red lettered proposal before it was approved by the Planning Commission. That, what was in that showed what was being added and what was being edited. All we put this in this meeting for is to just show you what the final draft looked like.
Okay. That was the only question I had, is wanted to make sure there wasn't
If
something.
what was added is section 4, is the code of conduct. Everything else that was added is simple typo corrections and rewording the one section that addresses meetings. Addressed one meeting a month and then from May to November or something, it's 2 meetings a month, and it just was way longer than it had to be, and this just restated it to what we actually do. We do 2 meetings a month, and either one of those can be canceled by the chairman if there's insufficient agenda items. That's the practice that happens now. So, and I know there's a question about bi-monthly meetings, but bi-monthly in this instance means 2 a month, not one every other month.
That should be changed then, the wording. I mean, I've always been under the assumption that bi-monthly is bi-monthly. It's every other month. Like bi-weekly is every
Depends
other
on where
week.
you look your definition up at.
Am I the only one on that?
No, they fixed it.
I read it right that way now, the way it is now.
Bi-weekly is every
That's
2
the way I
weeks.
read it.
It
correctly.
shall be held bi-monthly. And if you, depends on what school you went to, the bi-monthly can mean happening every 2 months, and it also can mean happening twice a month. So if you want it to mean you're going to have 2 meetings a month, I'd say it.
Yeah, that would be easier. It has 3 different definitions.
But that's a small correction.
It says occurring or producing twice a month or every 2 months as an adjective, and then as an adverb too, twice a month or every 2 months. And as a noun,
Yeah,
periodically produced
Write down,
twice a
check your
month.
calendar.
So you can have a biweekly payroll is either every 2 weeks or twice a
Well-
month.
Anyway,
So if the commission decides they want to change that,
Yeah, moving right along.
yes.
Mike's noted it.
Do we have to vote on this to accept?
No.
This is just for us.
No, and that was some
We already passed it.
confusion too, the way it was written in the old bylaws, it is amended and approved by the planning commission.
I suppose if we
So
had a
that's
real
what we did.
issue with it, we'd have to,
Well, obviously, if
Address
the
it
board has an
somehow.
issue with it, you can still go address it. I mean, you're the board, right?
yep, but they have the authority to do their own stuff. Okay,
I like the code of conducts in there. I think that's important, and I think that should be in every committee or something like that. We should have some kind of standards to put in there, because, have you had a problem with that?
that sounds like a
No,
policy.
we
need
haven't.
to do.
Huh?
No, we haven't.
What was the incentive of putting that in there?
There was some discussion about having the commissioner sign a code of conduct, and then that really wouldn't work out because they already do take an oath. And there were some legal concerns as to whether you could even ask them to do that. So we just decided to enter the code of conduct into the bylaws.
Great job.
Okay.
Moving on.
We're good? Consider Recreation Committee recommendation, 2015 Recreation Passport Grant. Falls to Mr. Mike, I guess, unless, Dave, you have something you want to,
No,
it's
I
up
think-
to you guys, however you want to do it.
Back when our township had some money, we agreed on applying for a passport grant, and we applied for it in 2017. And they give you 2 years to do that, but last year we weren't, with all the other stuff going on the construction, we were not able to complete the, even start the passport grant at Lions Recreation Area. So we've asked for an extension, and this summer is when we plan to put in this walkway that we wrote or the pathway around the park that we wrote for back in 2015. So in your packet, there's some information there about, we did receive 3 bids. We chose the lowest bidder, and that's on the docket for the summer at Lions Field. Now there is, right now, there's one loop path that goes around. It kind of goes around the whole park, except for, there's one option that, I think it shows option A, but it shows you there's an option going into Kitty Park. And then there's also another trail that we were planning on and may be able to do in the future that goes around the backside of the ice rink. And correct me if I've got
Yeah, if I
that
could
or
just-
add to that, Dave.
If I could just add in it that the bid packet, or the bid summaries that you see is the total base bid and additional option 1 and an additional option 2. Additional option 2 eliminated the path that goes around the ice rink and the stub path that goes up into the kiddie park. And that was initially because of the pricing that we got last year on this, put us way over budget. And we got an approval from the passport grant that we could adjust it down to what it is. And there were some concerns around the ice rink because we looked like we were talking about doing something with a roof or something on it. We weren't sure if the pathway is going to get in the way of that. So we thought we'll just save a little bit of money and keep ourselves within that budget. And if we decide to do something with the roof around the ice rink, then we don't have to tear up work we've already spent money on.
You're looking for the approval of the low bid?
Yeah, the 59,450.
59,450, so moved.
Second.
Yes. Go
Next.
ahead, Ernie.
I have a question. On the 59,450, we won't get reimbursed until this is actually completed. That's what I understand it. So the question I have is, do we have funds available to pay the contractor until we get that dollars in that too? So
Long as it's done by August, right, Danny?
Well, don't forget, we have the first week in August, Community Day, so hopefully it'll be completed by then.
They are actually talking about starting it in April, and they'll be done relatively quick for $59,000.
I think the best part I like about it, because once you get that dollars, the solid waste is going to be refunded the dollars that we actually put towards it to get the grant.
Long time coming.
Actually, that's a different part of the grant, wasn't it? was it 36,000, I think it was? Yeah, that was
Yeah.
for the other part of the grant. I don't know that you've got anything allocated for this 59.
I haven't seen any money, at least I haven't seen anything to pay that dollars yet.
No, that's based on Schwemmwood,
Yep.
is where that grant money is coming back for, and that's been applied for, I believe,
It's
right?
been applied for, but it hasn't come back
For
yet.
reimbursement.
Yeah, I think it was, what, like 2 weeks ago, I think it was,
Checks
Jason,
in the
that we
mail.
signed that thing.
Checks in the mail, okay, as long as it's in the mail.
The invoice is in the mail, let's put it that way.
Okay.
Dan, did you have something?
Yeah, I was just wondering what the pathway is going to consist of.
Yeah, it's, it's gonna be 6 inches, and it's gonna be the same base that you have in the Iron Ore Heritage Trail. And, the nice thing about it is there's gonna be pads where there's gonna be barbecues and picnic tables spread throughout the park, so,
So like that 22A that compacts and stuff?
yeah, it's limestone, actually.
I'm just thinking, if it's just pure gravel, kids picking it up and throwing it all over the place and.
No, it actually, if you look at what's on the Heritage Trail, that actually packs down pretty hard.
Good.
And that's gonna be what it is, so. That's required for the ADA compliance.
So how do we fund this, Randy, then, until we get our money back? We just,
Me?
Where is the beef?
There's actually I do have up on the screen what it's going to look like, except around the ice rink, there will be no path there.
Correct, if I
Yeah,
could for just a minute, what is not in that bid for 59.4, this is not in the bid. You can see the outline in red, and this is not in the bid.
because,
This is not in the bid because, well, the whole thing got taken out because of the pricing, because of the
that's
prices
smart.
we got last year. But we had considered dropping the whole thing to a 4-inch base instead of a 6-inch base, and which would allow us to get around there, but we thought better of that because we don't know what we're gonna do. If you remember, we're talking about funding a roof or something
Yeah.
for that. It's just gonna tear up what we spent.
so it probably has to come out of the fund balance until it can be replaced, I'm guessing?
You keep depleting the fund balance, you're down less than 2 months now. I've been warning you about that. If we get one more tax tribunal, we don't have a fund balance. You can't keep spending the fund balance down.
We should be able to apply for that, I would hope, by the end of April.
Bottom line is, though, I don't have any money to advance for it.
That's the issue, and that's why we stopped some of this stuff in the beginning. I mean, we'd already committed to this, but that's why we stopped going forward, because we just don't have that upfront money anymore. Ernie?
I can bring up again, because the solid waste, we do have some dollars there, as long as
we
it gets
do.
to be reimbursed. There's funds there that we could advance to this project.
Maybe 75 cents more for tipping fees.
So that is a possibility, if the board wants to go that direction, the dollars are there, as long as they get reimbursed in that. So we can move in that direction if you so choose in that.
That would be the safest for us.
And
Yes, it would
we
be.
are accumulating interest on that loan.
Yes,
We
yes.
are doing that.
Assuming glass doesn't poke a hole in the liner.
Well, to drain the water out, Randy, that's why you do it.
So I think at that point in time, when the dollars needs to be,
Yeah.
we can make that motion to advance it from the.
You know, if they're talking about starting in April, I would suggest that you make a motion now.
Right now.
To-
That was the,
To move the funds, you mean, or to approve this? or-
actually
Approve the-
approve it.
To approve the
Funds.
transfer of funds, because, if you wait till your second meeting in April, you'll probably already have a bill,
Yeah.
if they start in April.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, they're not gonna start until we authorize the contract, but
Yeah,
they were hoping we would
already
authorize
did.
it tonight so that they could be, could
they
start
have to
gearing up to
mobilize.
finish the project.
Well, you could do both. You could approve the grant and authorize the transfer from the solid waste fund tonight, to cover whatever interim bills come in.
The first motion is already on the floor, we have to
Yeah,
vote.
we already made the approve the Overstar.
Okay, let's finish that
The next
then,
motion has to go
first.
to get the money from waste.
So this motion is to award the bid to
the
Oberstar for
grant.
$59,450.
Right.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Then,
Ernie's.
you want to do that? Oh, you're checking your balances.
Balance sheet. there's funds there. We have some funds in the solid waste. that we can do.
Okay. You want to make the motion then?
For 59,450?
Yes.
That we allocate funds from the solid waste of $59,450 for what project? What do we-
Lions Field, it's a Lions Field pathway.
Lions Field pathway, which will be refunded once the passport grant is reimbursed.
Second.
And should we say anything about the interest so we have it
It's
documented?
with interest.
With interest.
Okay.
Can I state
don't-
the
I
interest?
don't want to assume that. I'd rather have it in writing.
In the motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Got it.
Okay, got it.
How much money is in there, Ernie? Maybe we we could use a
Just
little
enough.
bit.
All right.
We're running low.
Yes. Consider memorandum of understanding draft regarding supplemental law enforcement. Calls to Mr. Gerard again.
This is basically just a follow-up from the last meeting. We've been talking about this now for several meetings with regard to clarifying just what the supplemental law enforcement agreement says. You know, in my transmittal memo to you, basically recognizing that it's a new sheriff, new board. You guys have not been involved in negotiating the contract previously. There, over the years, all the way back into the 90s, there has been a contract in place, sometimes multiple years, sometimes single year. But over the course of that contract, agreements have been made on who was going to do what, how it was going to be done. None of those were ever memorialized in writing. And that raised the concern with the board in terms of the contract, in terms of interpreting who's responsible for what. So I put this together as a proposed memorandum of understanding to get you through this year so you can negotiate a full new contract for 2019. That was my intent. I did send it out to the board members last week, I believe it was, to take a look at.
Go ahead, John.
Move to adopt the recommended memorandum of understanding.
Support.
Okay, discussion, Dave?
I still have a problem with section 2. And I keep thinking I need to clarify this because I keep thinking that I'm opposed to this. And it says, in the rare event that the assigned township patrol officer be directed outside of the township boundaries, except in response to imminent danger of public harm or officer in need of assistance, the township will not be charged for such service hours outside of the township. The problem I have is not that the officer leaves the township for whatever period of time he leaves. If he leaves for 2 days and for an imminent danger situation, fine. But I don't know why the township residents pay for that.
Randy, we've talked about this too. Randy's got a good explanation or
Well,
perspective.
it's certainly, you can look at it in both ways. You know, the township residents through the general fund are paying the hourly rate for the deputy, no question about that. The instances where we have other agencies come into the township from the university or from the city or whatever, we don't get charged for that. There really was no necessarily rationale for it, other than kind of a mutual aid type thing is how we've always kind of looked at it. But certainly it is a cost, no question about it. If and when the deputy does leave township boundaries for other than township business. I'm not talking about when he goes, you know, when he's in court and things like that. That's outside the township boundary, but that's part of the job because it's something that occurred in the township that's causing him to be there. But in those instances where there's the most recent one I can think of was the barricaded suspect in Ishpeming, I think it was, where our officer left to back up the officer that was there, another county sheriff's deputy, until others arrived. That does happen. Not often, but it does happen. So I guess it's just a question for the board. To me, it doesn't matter one way or the other, whether you look at it as a mutual aid type thing or if you look at it as a pure cost item and deem that we don't want to pay for that.
If the case were to happen where the sheriff said, we can only give you a half a shift this week, and it was some kind of mutually agreed instance where that deputy is being removed, I would say that would definitely be like a no charge. If he said, so-and-so's got to go for training, you're only going to have one officer, we'll adjust your bill, or so-and-so's got surgery and we can't replace him for 2 days, or something like that. I think that would be more in line with saying, this is an exception, we're asking you to do something different than what's in the contract, you don't have to pay for it.
How often is it happening?
But other
Well,
than that, I
typically-
don't see,
Typically, something like that occurs, they post it as an open shift and fill it with another officer. It would not necessarily be our quote, township deputy, but, I mean, that's a regularly posted shift, that's an assignment. So, you know, if it's something like that where they're pulled for something, some departmental purpose, then they backfill that with another officer.
and unless you want to put some kind of a caveat in there that says, if the deputy is to leaves the township for, 8 hours, 4 hours, 2 hours, whatever. Personally, I think it's fine.
I'm not complaining about
I
the,
get your point, I totally get it.
I'm not sure that I don't think it's a mutual aid situation. And I don't know that we should be asking the residents to foot the bill for that.
But you-
I
unless
understand
you-
what you're saying.
Unless you qualify it, how do you foot the bill? Do we send, $50, $100, $2,000 to Northern if they come and back us up? Unless you define it in my mind and say 2 hours, 5 hours a day, a week.
I think it's going to
Have
happen.
that agreement already in place for.
I think it's going to happen more often that we're going to get support from other agencies than our one car, one person is possibly going to go to an agency.
this
I mean,
is-
it happened just this afternoon. I saw 2 cars on Werner Street. And I know we don't have 2 cars, so he got support from another.
And I guess this is what the point I'm trying to make, that supplying law enforcement is a county responsibility. We are paying for additional hours.
Right.
If the sheriff's department needs support inside of the township, and by a mutual aid agreement, other
already paying.
law enforcement agencies come over for that assist, that's a mutual aid agreement with the county. That's got nothing to do with the township. We have a mutual aid agreement with the fire department, and it's all well and good. The problem is we're paying for additional coverage. We're paying the county for additional coverage, and law enforcement is a county responsibility. The fact that we're paying for additional coverage that's a decision that the residents have made to pay for that, but the mutual aid aspect of it is a county issue. They're the ones that are providing the mutual aid.
How often does this happen?
I don't
Does
know.
anybody have an idea?
I don't
No,
care.
that's what my question was.
I'm
It might,
talking principle.
It might be once or twice a year, I don't know.
I don't
It
think
might-
it's that often myself.
It's a good question, because it is an extra cost. But we don't separate that either. When there's a call, we don't say, okay, actually, the deputy's on county time now, and our township time won't kick in for 3 more hours, we don't make
It's always
that
our time because
distinction.
we're paying.
We're paying both ways. We're paying
Exactly.
twice.
Exactly.
I understand what you're saying, totally, that you don't want to have that, because it's extra, it should be kept separate.
Well, if the university police come over or the city police, we're not paying,
No, that's not our problem.
that's not our, they don't bill us for that. If they
No.
come over, they don't bill us for that.
That's the county asking them to come in.
John?
I think Dave has made a valid point. I think it's something that we could look at again, but I would urge that we just adopt the proposed understanding as it is, and keep in mind, when we look at what's going on in our relationship with the sheriff and the department, that we take another look at it later on and see if we can't, if there's more information for us to work with, to see whether it would justify a fine-tuning and a clarification. Other than that, I think we could, right now, I think we've got a great relationship and a working agreement. And while I understand clearly that it's a good point, I think we should put it aside for the future.
Well said. Yes, Randy?
Again, we have no data on this, so without any data, as Dave would call it, for other items, we shouldn't even be talking about this until we have data if it happens twice a year versus 5 times a month. We don't know. So without data with this, because I think they can separate out when this happens, I don't think we should even talk about this until after a year.
Liam, in your conversation with Sheriff Zybert, has he commented at all on this? I mean, they know what we're talking about. Has he been talking about?
This hasn't been sent to anybody but you.
Oh, well, he knows
Yeah,
about
but
it
even
now,
the
I would imagine.
conversations, even in the previous administration, in the times I've talked to him, Randy has talked to him more, the ex-chief and captain and all those guys. Nobody's mentioned it.
And do we know of any other township that does that, or,
Well,
like Randy does?
We're kind of
says
the
we-
anomaly, though, by paying extra.
Right.
It's different. And that's what he's trying to get to.
Yeah.
This is over and above what they're already required to do.
But I think we should get data first, get a year's worth of data to see, because 2019 will be here before you know it. If we see this happening, average 5, 6 times a month, we could do something about it. It happens twice a year, well,
And the only one that has the data is the sheriff's department.
yeah.
Well, and they'll be here in June to talk about it again.
Dispatch.
Yep.
when we Go through this, so it's definitely, we can bring it up.
I just think that we get the data first before, like I said, I like data, as Dave says. You need that data for discussion points. We don't have any data on this, so I think we get some data, and then that would make the discussion point more valid.
Yes, Dave?
I would just like to point out, this is not an agreed-to memorandum of understanding between the county and the township, that this is our understanding of what this means and is yet to be shipped off to the sheriff's department.
Proposed.
So the motion on the floor is to send this, if we agree with it, right? Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
What a surprise.
All right, we'll get that in the mail. And we did Kirk's tunnel vision.
With tunnel vision.
Yes, so pulled items from the agenda, the financials. I did want to briefly touch on the difference in the charter franchise fee from, and I remember that letter a year or two ago where they wanted to increase it, and we voted for that. So we have 5% now instead of 2 or 3. And it was always suggested by at least this board and a couple before this one that we take that communication money and put it toward communication stuff in the township. And we kind of never did. At one point, I remember bringing it up when I first asked about computers. Well, we got this money, can't we use it just for that? It was never earmarked. It's been going into the general fund, which is fine, and we've used it. But I'd like to suggest that we take some of that money and at least get our computers up to date. Some of you don't use them. I wish we would all use them. Save some of this paper, if nothing else.
Who doesn't use them?
They're laptops here.
Bring it to the meeting.
Yeah.
You don't have to have them at the meeting.
No, I know that, but I think it would be nice. But that's just me. It's just me. But if you're using them, they still need to be updated.
I think
We need new ones.
I think we all are using them, or you wouldn't come here with a fistful of paperwork.
Yeah, most of this we supply, but anyway.
No, a lot of it is printed
You print your
off
own?
of the computer at home when people go through doing their work, their homework, on what's going to be on the agenda. That's why,
I do, but I know that some of you get packets too from the office. I don't know who does, I didn't pay attention.
but, so I think everybody's using the computer. If it needs to be updated, it's a blanket thing.
Yeah,
Well, I think there's two questions. Number one is, do the board members still want to have a full-size laptop, or do you want a smaller device that's more current? Because you've had these laptops now for almost 5 years. So technology has changed, and there are smaller units available that have more power and more capacity. That's one question. And the other question is, who cares? I mean, do we care? Do
yeah,
you really care?
that's why I
mean, do you-
wanted to ask the question. But we also had a presentation from the planning department for equipment to not only improve their use of the community room for functions, but to have it available for those people who are utilizing it, renting it, and paying for it. So I'm not all about spending money, but if we have excess money that we were kind of all along hoping would go toward communications, and we have communication needs, that's the question I'm asking. Do we want to take some of that money and put it toward those things?
Yeah, we are starting to see on these laptops, we are starting to see failures in the hard drives that are being replaced. Now these are, what you have on your laptops does not reside on the laptop unless you saved something on the desktop. They're basically dumb terminals that are just connecting to the server and pulling information off the server and utilizing the information unless you save it on the desktop. Otherwise, it's you're not using any memory on your laptops. You're simply accessing by Wi-Fi. You're accessing the server for files.
Ernie?
I thought at one time we were talking about making a line item of the dollars coming in from charter.
Well, we do, yeah. And what Lynn's referring to is, if you'll remember, we always had a 3% fee, franchise fee. We increased that to 5%. However, the budget only reflects the initial 3%. So there's about $26,000 additional to what's in the budget. But there is a line item in the revenue budget that shows the CATV, which is charter. So you can track, what's coming in, what's going out.
And that doesn't, we can do this one time now or not, or split it, put some of it in the general fund. I know, like, Randy's getting a little panicky. We have stuff coming up and we need funds, so he's not really ready to get rid of this either and put it somewhere we don't need. But it is stuff that we can use to do a better job at what we're supposed to do.
He is really angry that the Treasury Department can find $200,000 to give to Escanaba, but they couldn't give us anything.
You need to talk about that in your manager's report, definitely. The public needs to know that, what happened this week. That's
All right.
smoke coming out of my ears.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dave, you were first.
I use my computer all the time, this computer. I use it for all the meetings. But I am not in favor of replacing them for the new latest and greatest version. I think you could just simply replace them with the latest, greatest version when they fail, which would be fine. And I think the balance of that money should, if you need to earmark it for something, I would earmark it to some worthwhile projects like updating the community room so it can be used and bring it up to speed. But I don't think we need to go out and spend money for this just so we can have the latest, greatest version, so we can all look like the supervisor.
Well, the one thing, well, my other one failed, so.
I know.
What was I gonna say?
To get it going.
We do, like Randy mentioned today, it behooves everybody who's using their computer to make sure we're all on the same page. So we want to make sure that if we update yours and now his is old, and then we don't update his and we give him one, we all need to kind of be at the same page. So if we want to wait till they all fail, because if you've got, we can do that too.
I think you can replace, if a computer fails, you can replace it with a better version of this without.
But there is a little difference, and I pointed that out to Randy today. When I went to get when my other one went, I went to Best Buy and I bought a computer. I took it to 906. I bought it myself because I wanted one of my own. I took it to 906. They could not use that computer, period, because of the link up we have with the server.
Wouldn't
It
link.
had to have the next great upgrade. So then I ended up coming back, this is the township computer. I ended up not having to be able to do that because it cost more. So this isn't just about buying a $300 computer. You have to get something specific that'll work with the server. It's more involved, it's gotta have, I don't know, whatever, bigger
It has to be able to
hard
link.
drive.
Yeah, it has to be
It's
able to
different.
link with
I'm not
the,
suggesting when this fails that we go out and buy something out of wherever. I'm suggesting that 906 replace it with something that is
Standard.
the better version. So, and everybody gets, as these computers fail, everybody gets replaced with the same standard version.
well, and you have a couple of options. You know, personally, I like the bigger laptop, personally. But, you know, mine has failed. You know, the hard drive failed on my laptop to replace the hard drive rather than replace the whole laptop. But if your keyboard starts to go, that can't be replaced. Now, then you have to replace your computer. So if you're getting letters that aren't working and the connections in the keyboard are failing, then you're looking at replacing the unit.
So if you don't want new ones, totally fine. That's why I just wanted to ask the question. If somebody needs one or they don't have one that they can use, they're having problems with connections or something, then we need to address it. And this is a way to do it without having it cost extra. Yes. Ernie?
And we started as to where this dollar's gonna go
Mhm.
for computers or whatever it is. And we do have a line item. That line item, I don't know if it's addressed for any specific project or anything else.
Nope.
Is that something that we want to say X% of it is gonna go to electronics or that?
You certainly can. What you see in the budget is you see the revenue coming in the revenue line, and it goes into, as Supervisor Rent mentioned, it goes into the general fund balance. And it's been distributed from there for whatever needed the funding.
And if you want to keep it that way, that's fine. I brought it up for discussion because, especially because we had the request. I don't need a computer. If you guys don't, we're good.
It's like everything else in the revenue. You know, in the revenue budget, very little of that is earmarked for anything. It all goes into the general fund balance and then is pulled out as you adopt the budget into the various departments.
So if you want to, we can talk about this again, if you want to go back and review the AV equipment that was requested, or if you just want to just leave it the way it is. I'm just talking about the
Lynn?
difference too, remember. Because we've got the regular 3% we've already got. I was looking at that excess that we have this month.
Just as kind of an example to give you an illustration of how that works, in the property tax line item includes the 1.5 mil for the road project. And further down in the budget, you'll see that money pulled out and transferred to the Township Improvements Fund under roads. That's the same thing that happens with the CATV money, the CTAV money. CT, whatever the hell it is, charter. Anyway, CATV, that's what it's under. That money goes into the general fund balance, and it's been pulled to distribution to wherever the board approved in the budget.
Should
As
be
part of
used
the
for
overall
finance.
fund.
I think that if we're gonna do what we said we're gonna do way back when we did the budget, that the best place to earmark that for is as simple as electronic media improvements. And decide where it's gonna go when we need something to go
Yeah.
someplace.
And then at the end of the year, if we don't use it or don't want to keep it in that fund, we put it wherever we want it.
So what would happen
Randy will need it.
what would happen in that case is that money would come into the revenue budget as CATV, and then probably under one of the capital funds would then be pulled out and put into a capital fund for audiovisual improvement in the community room or whatever. Whatever the board decides to do, and that's one of the options. Obviously, there's been a recommendation to put a bigger screen in there, which would make it more usable, and also a projector and a screen for those folks that have some other type of a presentation to make. So that's one of the options.
You said improving the speaker system.
Yes.
In there too, so.
Mhm.
Can't we put it in a more general description fund so that we can use it for what we
What we
want to
need.
use it
It
for?
doesn't have to be earmarked. It
Right.
can.
Into
just have a
electronic
separate account.
somehow.
Well, I'll
fund.
tell you, if you put it into the improvements in the community room, then that's where it's supposed to go.
No,
but-
no, that wasn't what I was thinking, and I don't know that Randy was. just call it whatever you want. Electronic improvements or,
Yeah, just something general.
Well, then it doesn't, then it
Communication.
may not get to where you want it to get to. I mean, if you have a specific project, you know, it's like we did with the, kiddie park, the climbing structure. Over 2 years, we set money aside specifically in an assessment fund, basically, in the general fund, so it wouldn't get spent on something else. We plugged it in there and specifically identified that's what it was for. It was over 2 years we were going to do that to be able to fund it.
Well, some of that money was supposed to go to set up programs so we could communicate with the residents.
Mhm.
That was a couple of years ago we brought, that's where the money should go to try to improve our, connection with the residents, so.
And we've done some of that. Yeah, we've used it for some of that as well. So,
Randy?
But-
Oh, sorry.
oh, go ahead.
I think the community room, we can do that as a phased project. I think the sound system needs to be upgraded first because the sound system's off at this room. So technically, if we have a meeting in here, we can't do any sound in the other room where we're gonna have the meeting sound over there, which is kind of a problem.
Well,
If
but-
you have two meetings going, that's an issue.
But remember, one of the things that we did when we designed this was there was a conscious decision made to have them off of the same system, so if you had an overflow crowd here, they could be in there watching on the screen and still hear everything.
Well,
So,
then we need a switch.
yeah,
Yeah,
We'll turn it on
it needs
or
to be addressed differently
then you
because,
still need a separate system for in there.
yeah, because it's not working.
I would like to see us have a better mic at the podium there because it seems like we always have problems listening to somebody. Tonight I had trouble with Kirk, and I know John had the same problem trying to hear.
Well, the problem isn't in here, it's, I didn't have no problem, but you gotta remember too, the monies we spent, we don't wanna spend 10,000 for a top-of-the-line sound
They
system
just need to be
either.
closer, that's all,
Yeah.
closer to the mic.
But then the video part of that in the community room can probably be addressed next year or something. I think we can phase that upgrade so it doesn't, deplete that fund that we got, so. But the sound, I think, is more important than the audio-visual right now because Randy is right, we did design that so we could have overflow in that room if we needed to. But in 4 years here, we never had that problem so far, so.
It only takes one bad issue, though. So what I'm actually asking is the difference between the 3 and the 5%.
About $26,000 roughly.
That's what I would like to see us do something with. If we don't need computers, that's fine. If you feel that you want to handle the capital part of the community room differently, and maybe during budget time or whatever, then we can just put this 26 back in the general fund and use it for whatever. That's my question. Ernie?
I'd like to see it put into a line item. I don't quite know what to call it yet. And we're talking about a lot of projects. I think we need to put it into a line item that we can pull those projects out of that line item and that, so that we can move forward in that, so.
Why can't we use it for matching funds or something like that? That'll help us.
We can use it for
Good.
whatever we want. I'm just making the recommendation.
I would agree
Because we had the
with
request.
Treasurer Johnson saying.
Rather than talk about all these possibles, put it into a line item, is it there, we can then look at it for our different projects and that, so.
And maybe it's a seed money for a $50,000 project in the community room. And
Call it
Save
something like electronic equipment or something like that, similar to what you do with lighting. You have a separate line item for lighting.
So then the sort of agreement would be,
I'll have to check,
is it exactly 26?
I'll have to check with the accountant and find out what the appropriate line item under chart of accounts would be, but we'll find something.
Have her,
Okay.
have her do one and pull
Build
that.
it into the budget for 2019. Actually, we put it in the budget now,
Yeah.
so you could separate that out.
And then we can decide what we want to do with it. Maybe talk about it in July when we
Alright.
do our budget. And then maybe we revisit whatever Jason was telling us. It seemed like it was about 50 grand total.
No, it
Yes.
was only 9 or 10.
No, not his whole, he wants to
Yeah,
do
you had
the
a whole package that
big
was,
screen and
yeah.
it was-
But these are all projects. We have to get into
Yeah.
line item, then we can
So at
start
least if
looking
we-
at projects.
Yeah, if we put this money aside, we've got a
Move
little
along.
seed money, and if we don't do it, then we transfer it back. Do you want a motion, anybody, or is it just direct staff?
No,
I don't
just
think we
have-
need a motion, just let them know that we want to create a line item on that.
Okay,
Leave Randy and Lois work it out
okay,
and come back to us.
sounds good. All right, Dave, gee, getting tired.
Absolutely.
Committee updates.
First of the Planning Commission, from our February 28th meeting, the short-term rental zoning amendment was going to have a public hearing on March 28th. That's been rescheduled to the 11th of April. The reason for the rescheduling is the documents got submitted, but they didn't reach the publication level in timely enough fashion for that public hearing on the 28th, so we rescheduled that to April 11th. The master plan review, we got a number of comments and edits in Chapter 4, so we're going to revisit that in the March 28th meeting. And then the community survey, there were a number of edits made on that, so we're going to, I know I told you that you might see that at your next meeting, but that's going to get pushed off till the April 3rd meeting. Then you've got the Planning Commission bylaws that were effective on the 14th. And the road and trail safety intersection, it was recommended that event road crossing standardization should be studied with an eye towards a written policy and training requirements. That was referred down to the Road and Rec committees to take a look at, and since that, we're going to get a review from legal to see if we're even able to do something with that. The concern is that we have a number of events that come through the township, but there's no standardized procedure as to how we get people across the roads and how we get event participants across the roads. And we were going to take a look at if it was worth writing a policy or guidelines, if you would, for how that would happen, but we need to figure out if we can even do that. So that's kind of on hold. The road committee is in the process of reviewing. We had another review on Chapter 4. For that, the asset management program development, we're told will be done sometime in the middle of April to the end of April. We're still waiting on the road rehab project maintenance, and it looks like the weather's clearing up nicely, so we should be able to get out and do something with that. And let's see, there was a letter attached, and I don't know how it got attached there on the end of the agenda for the road committee that was in your packet. The dates are all wrong on that. It should have been a whole lot different than it was. I think it was on there for the 28th and 29th, and it should have been the 14th and 15th, so.
Was it supposed to be in the packet? I was kind of surprised.
Yeah, it was, but
Just as informational?
I was figuring I was already in Florida.
Yeah, that's what you
I
said.
didn't see it.
And then the Recreation Committee had their meeting before this one started tonight, and there hasn't been any progress on the ice rink improvements options and recommendations. We're still working on that as time permits. Right now we're trying to talk to some and get some information back from artificial ice providers to see what their options are, if there are any feasible options there. And just to mention that the spring park cleanup is still set up for May the 26th from 10 to 2. And that is it, unless there's questions.
What, between you and Clerk Rattari, what, you've said thrown out $100,000, $150,000 to put a roof on that rink. So I suppose trying to put walls up and actually we'd have to end up pulling the cement back up and putting freezing coils and stuff to actually make it an enclosed rink?
And what the
Is that what it would entail?
committees were charged with looking at was looking at enclosing the rink and seeing how much that would increase the skating season versus putting a roof over it and what the cost of that would be and how much would that increase the skating season versus artificial ice and factor in the maintenance costs and all three of those options so that we can get some kind of an idea of what we're looking at and make a recommendation moving forward if you want to do anything with it at all. I mean, it's.
Yeah, that's good.
So that's a ways off, and just remember there's one of the ways to pay for any of that is with grants, obviously. The grant cycle doesn't finalize again until April. And we're obviously not gonna make this grant cycle, so you're looking at a year off before anything gets done with that. So we've got lots of time to review it, make recommendations, come back with all the cost factors that everybody needs to consider and make an informed decision.
Okay, so we keep kicking that roof around. Yeah.
Just an aside, when the talk gets around to talking about putting a roof on the arena, and then we talk about a wall being put up so that you can put a roof on there. One of the reasons that improving the ice on the arena is that we could attract people to citizens to come and watch. If you put walls up, it's pretty hard to see what's going on.
And those are all the issues that need to be addressed.
And I understand. I think you got a big project that needs a lot of close investigation. Because if you're really intending to attract people to come and watch, you're going to have to put seating.
Well, what it's gonna get down to is it's gonna get down to, there's about 3 options out there, and there's pros and cons for each one of those options, and nobody out there needs to make that decision except the board. You just need to be presented with, these are the options we come up with, these are the pros and cons of each one, these are the maintenance costs that are associated with each one, and these are the construction costs that are associated with each one, and then just have a field day with it and make a decision or don't make a decision.
We could have a work session on that alone. Thank you.
Lynn?
Yes, sir.
Just want to make a comment from the event committee. This coming Saturday, we're going to have the Catch a Vision under the cover of Hockey Bash. It's boot hockey, 3-on-3 hockey tournament this coming weekend, and it's $20 a team, and you can sign up at the Marquette Township Hall here. So there'll be food trucks and awards and prizes. So that's this coming Saturday. So.
Can you hold that up and see if John can pick some of it up? At least the big writing.
Can you get that, John? All right. That's this Saturday at noon, starting at noon.
Great. Any other committee,
The next one will be the car show in the spring.
anything else committee-wise? Okay, we lost our public, unless you want to say something, Mike. We're up to public comment again, or down to it. Meeting wrap-up. Any announcements from anybody?
I do have some. I got an email from the county clerk just this week. They will be having some election inspector trainings this spring and early summer. So, and a number of my people need to be recertified, so they will be going to those. And if anyone out there would like to be an election inspector, you have to attend one of the trainings. To do that, and either contact me, contact Lois, or contact the county clerk, and they will get you oriented to classes where they are, and they're like 2 hours. It isn't that long, and you need to be, you get certified for up to 2 years to do that. So all my election inspectors are getting letters from me, you know, letting you know where the courses are, so they have to take one to be recertified. So I mean, I do have enough people, but it's always nice to have more in case people get sick. I've had some people get sick and other things. So this is a good year to do it because it's the midterm and it's usually not a super high turnout election. So I like to use this year as training for folks. So that's all I have.
Okay, any other announcements? I probably should have mentioned this during the committee updates, but we're still looking for Downtown Development Authority volunteers. I hate to say volunteers because they actually do get a stipend. And we actually only meet 5 or 6 times a year. The biggest time frame being 9 to 3 and then 3 to 9, 2 days a year in March, and that's it. Otherwise, it's usually a 5-minute meeting or an hour meeting. It's not a huge commitment, but I said DDA, didn't I?
Yeah,
Yeah.
board of
Oh, I'm so
review.
sorry.
Board of review.
Board of review.
I was wondering, wait a minute.
It's because that was right above my other comment.
That's why it wasn't cleaned up,
I'm
because you're
sorry.
shorthanded.
I'm sorry. Yes, Board of Review. So folks can come in and talk about their property and their taxes and their issues. So it's a small commitment time-wise, except for those 2 days. But we could even just use an alternate, so you may not even get picked, but consider it. If you have a little bit of time you can spare. March is the only bigger commitment. Otherwise, it's 3 more times a year. Manager's report.
Well, you do have a printed report, relatively brief. I was in Lansing Wednesday and Thursday of last week, so I did this before I went to Lansing. So it's a little bit brief, but the 2 items that we've been talking about. Number one, Trustee LaRue just mentioned Saturday, this coming Saturday, the 24th, starting at noon, we are having our final event of the year at the ice rink at Lions Field. It will not be on ice. As you probably know already, the ice has melted, and the forecast for the remainder of this week is upper 30s and 40s. So it will be a boot hockey tournament, 3-on-3. We have room for 16 teams. We do have room for more teams to sign up. The posters basically have been distributed. Pete just held one up. I've got the smaller one here. Teams are up not more than 5. We do not have goalies. We have the box goalies out there. 3 slots in the box for goals. It's half ice, and teams, certainly we would like to have them be co-ed teams. It always makes it more fun. The fee is $20 per team. You can register right here at the Township Hall. All the posters say to contact me. You don't have to contact me. All you need to do is call the office or stop in to fill out a registration for your team and show up on Saturday. We will have some food trucks there for refreshments. And last year people had a ball. They really had a lot of fun doing it. It does extend the season. So that's one item. Second item, I did do follow-up with the Marquette Energy Center after the last board meeting with Mr. Carpenter. You do have a report of that in your packet. I did see now that last week Mr. Carpenter was appointed as the director, so he's no longer the interim acting director. He is now the director. He has made a commitment to get the information to us when he receives that from Wartsala. They have received some preliminary information, but not recommendations as yet for his board to consider. His board will consider those before they bring them to us to determine what's feasible, what's not feasible, and then go from there. I gave you minutes of the last corridor committee meeting. We have the next meeting coming up on April the 17th, which will be, I believe, in Ishpeming for that meeting. I'd already mentioned earlier that we received information actually yesterday that good for the city of Escanaba. They will be going forward with their case against Menards to the tax tribunal. We'd like to have that be earlier in the year than what's being forecast right now. It looks like it's going to be late fall, October, November, before that case gets heard. But what did frost me is that the state treasurer is going to advance up to $200,000 to the city of Escanaba to allow them to get expert witnesses for their case. 5 years ago, if you'll remember, we bent over backwards and knocked on every door to try and find somebody to be interested in this case 5 years ago when we tried to get it to the Supreme Court, that nobody would talk to us, nobody would participate except the county, who gave us $1,200. So now all of a sudden there's $200,000 to assist. We spent almost $300,000 fighting this case through the Court of Appeals to the Supreme Court and got no assistance from anybody. So it frosts me now that this money is available for the city of Escanaba to take our case, basically, with the Menards. They're using our arguments that we used in our case. So kind of frosts me. And the residents should be really upset about it too, because it came out of their general fund.
Can we get any of the money back?
No.
We can put in a grant request, I suppose. We could have Mike write it. Pathetic.
It's just irritating that all of the people that we talked to who said, nope, it won't affect us at all, are now on the bandwagon. 6 years too late.
MTA, MML, the city of Marquette, all, the county.
The state.
The library, the school district, nobody. Nobody would listen. Yes?
When we get the communication back from the Board of Light and Power with their recommendations, are we actually going to see the recommendations that come from the manufacturer? with their findings, or are we just gonna get the
Homogenized?
homogenized version from the Board of Light and Power?
I cannot answer that question. They are an independent agency.
It'd be nice to know about the
I would hope that we would pass on to the new manager, who wasn't a manager, wasn't really involved in all the decisions of the generators.
Mhm.
I would pass on to him that we have some competent folks here that could look at those, the information passed on by their manufacturer, and we are interested in eventually, if they are not going to resolve this issue satisfactorily, we are interested in having a session with their board here, because they were the ones that were here and answered our inquiry saying it would be no pollution. And I think that we need to have that in mind. We're going to get two things. We want the detailed information to look at, and we want their board to answer the question, if they're not going to resolve it, to come here and face us again. Because they came here before they went to the city to get their permission to go ahead. They came here to get goodwill, okay, folks, go ahead. And they sat right there and lied to us.
Yes, Pete?
Lynn, I would like to know on the two generators, the first one they ordered, the decimals on that versus what they accepted. Because this is not what they first ordered. They accepted this one because of a price or some discount like that. This was, someone else didn't need this one.
Yeah.
What's the difference in decimals?
We,
And how do you,
Pete, you need to know that as soon as they put the second order on and made it publicly known, we sent a similar letter that asked the same questions about pollution in the air and in noise. And they answered it, and our manager has it on file. They answered it that there would be none. That's, I think our
well, my question to them is why do they have it without being enclosed?
Well,
You know,
it isn't, they'll argue that it's enclosed. But the point is, our residents are on a property that's on an elevation at the top of a bluff. Totally different than putting these where they normally put them on a flat desert floor. It's totally different. And we had questions that are going to make all the difference if this thing ever gets in a courtroom. Because our questions were, is the elevation of the bluff changing things and making you more aware that you are possibly going to commit a pollution to a neighboring community?
but at the same time, John, we all knew when they start cutting the trees down for the solar panel, they're taking out one part of it, the insulation. You know, why would you cut all the trees down and not expect you're gonna get noise?
That's another piece of it.
Yeah.
But that we didn't ask about, but we did ask specific questions that will become of interest later on.
And they only got one unit working.
Pardon?
They only got one unit working.
Well,
They don't have three at all times. If coal's cheaper, they go down south.
I think we need to talk to their board, and I think that if we don't get anywhere talking to their board, we need to talk to the City of Marquette Commissioner, because they gave the go-ahead. They voted on this and approved it.
One of the Board of Review folks who came in has an issue with the sound and that.
There's 13 of them.
So he's looking at his taxes saying,
And you just raised them.
yeah, can we do anything about my taxes? My property value's probably going. Can I sell my house? Those are the kinds of things he asked. So it's an issue, and we kind of said, that doesn't fall to us. Yes, Dave?
That's why I would like to see a communication go to the Board of Light and Power that would clearly notify them that we would not just want to see the Board of Light and Power's recommendation, but we'd want to see the manufacturer's findings and recommendation in whole, not in a watered-down version. And just let them know that ahead of time so that we don't get what we get. At least we can say we asked for it.
Do you want the manager to put something together and request that before Carpenter even gets a chance? Is that what you're suggesting?
I think we need to clearly communicate that to the Board of Light and Power before anything, the sooner the better.
Support.
Sounded like a motion.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? You thought you were gonna get off without another motion, didn't you? Anything else for the manager? Okay, you wanna review your motions when you get a second?
Chance.
There, so, letter.
Okay, tonight's motions, we had, the first one was to approve the agenda as amended. Consent agenda as amended. Second motion was to approve the regular agenda as amended. The action item was to, for Public Works, to bring back for next meeting the SAW grant proposal with more information. Action item under community linkage was have the supervisor direct a letter to, I think was it the county board, Len, or solid waste?
Well, Randy recommended the County Township Association.
To the County Township Association with our concerns and see where that ends up. Third motion was to establish a work session for policy governance, April 11th at 2 p.m. here. Fourth motion was to send the letter of support for Republic Township for the dam. Fifth motion was to approve the passport grant project for $59,450. Sixth motion was to take that $59,450 from the solid waste fund with interest to be paid back once it's reimbursed. Seventh motion was to approve the memorandum of understanding for the law enforcement contract. Action item under the financials for the charter communication payment was for the manager to work with the accountant to make a line item for the charter communications money. And the eighth motion was just to direct the manager to clearly state that we would like to manufacture recommendations for the mitigation of the sound or the pollution of the Marquette Energy Center.
Findings
For the findings.
and recommendations.
Findings and recommendations from the manufacturer of the Marquette Energy Center, and direct that to the Board of Light and Power.
We got
That's
a
it.
lot done tonight. Way to go, guys. Okay,
This is a good board.
yeah, we're pretty active. So any board member comment? Yes, Ernie?
Just one, reading through one of the information that Randy forwards has to do with rural development grant. Nagani Township got dollars to expand their water system through a rural development grant. I don't know how much dollars it was or what they're talking about, but it's something to think, pardon?
100,000.
I know the county got 100,000 for on 492 and that, so it didn't really indicate that there was 100,000 for Marquette Township, so. It's something to think about, whether we qualify or not, but it's out there.
It's just so much more expensive. That's the problem with the rural development grants. That's,
This is a grant, so there should be no repayment.
oh, that's true, yeah. It's not a loan, you're right.
No, it's
Pardon
a
me.
grant.
Anything else to share?
Just
Yes,
a
John.
a thought to pass along about the treasurer of the state granting a sizable amount of money for what's going on in another community. It's nearing election year.
The other thing, speaking of finances, the only thing I wanted to add is that the library has a PAC formed to try to get the Headley Amendment, at least as far as they're concerned. I don't know what the right term would be, abolished or appealed or what they want to do. Anyway, they want to override the Headley Amendment and be able to go back to 1 mil. So that will hit our pocketbooks in the township, or people. Dave.
I think it's interesting that they can do that, but we can't revisit the city charter.
They have to come to us, we have to do it.
How interesting.
Yeah, I'm tired of doing that for them. If they want to do a referendum, let them worry about it. That's going to be my recommendation when it comes up. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. So they're going after more funds. That's all I have. Anything? Pete?
I just want I attended the last planning commissioner meeting. You know, I urge people to attend some of those. They're very informative, and you can be proud of the planning commission for doing a good job. They research what they're working on. They ask good questions, and I think they do a great job. And so, if you ever got time, go and listen and see what's going on. And that hurts me to say that they're doing a good job.
Hey, we're proud of our volunteers. They work hard. Yes, Dan.
First of all, I want to apologize for leaving the meeting. I had a very important phone call from my wife's doctor that I had to take. I don't know what Gary Johnson said. He did give us a little dog and pony of the computer upgrades that he's putting in the trucks today, and they're going to be phenomenal. They really are. And our frontline pumper should be back in operation tomorrow. They're putting everything back together, and he's got one more day to work on it, and that's looking good.
Sounds good. Anything else? One last motion then.
No?
We got a closed session in there, don't we?
Oh,
Well, we still need a motion.
yeah.
Yeah.
But isn't the last motion?
Well, for the public it is. Anybody?
Move to go into closed session pursuant to 15.628 subsection C,
268.
268 subsection C for strategy and negotiation session connected with negotiation of a collective bargaining agreement if either negotiating party requests a closed hearing.
Support.
Roll call?
Clerk retires, yes. Trustee Everson?
Yes?
Trustee LaRue?
Yes.
Trustee Wiegand?
Lincoln. Yes.
Trustee Marks?
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson?
Yes.
Supervisor Durant?
Yes.
Closed session at 9:18 PM.